after that, what, wait? Teach these brothers that they kings, maybe they won't have to dream. It's a new day, a new era. Time to fall in love with that black that you see up in that mirror, nigga. Peace and love, unity and power. But sit your ass down, it's for the scholars. Minute after minute, hour after hour. Let me shout out my Yahweh. You can shout out what you lean on. We going live, turn your screen on. Grab a seat, get this knowledge when the team on. Better pay attention before you end up in detention. Let me mention who it be inside that a TV. Black peace, black love, black power. Inside that a TV. We can reach the world of power. Inside that a TV. We can do it. If we each show up, what's stop? Inside that a TV. Now you see. Yeah, outside that I don't hate you, black man. I just hate you cause you hate me. And I ain't did you nothing, but you looking all shady. Maybe it's Mercedes or that Beamer in the driveway. Maybe I can show you how to get that butt you sideways. Tuning on that YouTube side net a TV. Yeah, we cooking in the kitchen, but it's no pig feet. I can give you a million years, but you can't beat me. You should try to be yourself. We can show you all the steps. What's your name? Where you calling from? Who on the line? Open up what you calling for. What's on your mind? Dig up in that bag and drop a jewel for your people, exposing all evil. Outside that a TV. Black peace, black love, black power. Outside that a TV. We can reach the world of power. Outside that a TV. If we each show up, what's stopping? Outside that a TV. Now you see. Yeah, outside that a TV.
Yeah. Peace and black power. Peace and black power to the people. Listen, man, we got a new brother coming on, making his first appearance. He may not be new to some of you, but he's new to the channel, making his debut, and he go by the name of Hercules in the building. Mensa Hercules. So you already know what it is, man. King Hercules, and he will be dealing with black mathematical science. I'm anxious to see that. I know he's about to go in. This will be a slide PowerPoint presentation. All right, turn on your camera, brother. Peace and blessings to you. What's happening?
Not much. Wait, give me a second.
Yes, sir. Take your time. Let's get it right. All right. In case y'all want to know what I'm using, I'm not getting no money for it, but I just would like to look out for those who may have bags under their eyes. And you can go to TikTok and you can get this Harry's Cooling Eye Kit. I need to start getting paid for promotion, but I'm just trying to look out for some of y'all out there. I know y'all be up late. I know a lot of us be getting these bags under our eyes, man. This is real good. It's like hard body. Put it in the freezer. Put this ointment on it that they came with under your eye and just rub it with the cooling. And you will feel it. You'll feel like the tingling inside. You know, it's real good, man. Trust and believe. It's real good. Yep. This will definitely move the bags from under your eyes. You wake up in the morning and you check yourself and you'll see that this joint really do works. I think I paid 40 something for this. Yep, $40-something. And it works. I just seen a few people doing it, and I said, man, let me check it. Because, man, I be up late. I be getting bags and all that. It'd be hard for me to sleep sometime. And The bags be there.
Brother Sarnetta, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
Good, good. How you feeling, man?
I'm good, brother. I'm looking forward to this, man. You got a PowerPoint presentation coming. One more plug. Let me plug in my man, Captain Cesaria. Yesterday, I did a sit down with the captain. We was in the park, and I ain't put the video up yet. I will be putting it up probably tomorrow. And it was nice and humid, and the wind blew my way. And I was like, damn, Cap, what is that you got on? And he said, oh, I got it in my pocket. I got it right here. It's this one right here. It's not no name to it. What I like about it is a spray on, and it's oil. So I don't spray it on my clothes. I spray it on my hand, rub it in and just put it around me like that. But yeah, he didn't name this yet because it was brand new. So he just put this together yesterday, and he just gave it to me. I said, yo, here, take it. So here it is right here. When y'all see this, the purple, light purple, and it's going to be a name. He didn't put a name on it yet. So he just gave me this fresh off the press. You know what I'm saying? So that's what it is. So peace and black power to you, King Hercules. What's happening?
Nothing much, brother. Nothing much. Chilling. You know what I'm saying? Maintaining.
Talk to me about your presentation that you got coming up, and why do you think this is important for us?
It's important because we get caught up when we talk about science. We get caught up in the Eurocentric point of view, and we are not distinguishing the difference. And when it comes to the sciences, and that's what we have to do. We talk about, there's a lot of talk about revolution and stuff, but we're not making that distinction in how Black people do approach doing science, and the difference between how white people do it, and then the outcomes, the different outcomes as well. So that's
now the last time we spoke, I think you broke it down beautifully when I asked the question, like, there's no such thing as Black science or white science or Spanish science, or, science is just science. And you broke it down so beautifully. Can you go through that again? Why do you say Black science and instead of just saying science in general?
Yeah, and be honest, because the difference is that what I've learned over the years, and it took me about 25 years to learn this, to realize this, was that when we do our science, it's a thing of science and recognizing the spirit as well, whereas Westerners, they don't recognize spirit and stuff like that, and that's the difference. But for us, because we grew up in a Western culture, we tend to look at it as nonsense, and that's because we grew up in a Western culture. Instead of like growing up in a traditional African culture, where they would see it as, it's rational and it's logic for them, because they grew up in that traditional African culture without any influence of the West. But we didn't grow up like that. And so that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So whenever you're ready, you can put your PowerPoint up and we can get it in. As soon as you let me know you're ready, brother.
I'm ready. I'm gonna go ahead and share the screen.
Okay. I see your screen right there. Your screen is sharing.
All right. Are we good? We good?
Yes, sir. We good. Looking good so far. You up there. Let's get it.
What's going on, fam? My name's Hercules. I'm from Washington, D.C. My background is in mathematics. I'm a teach in public schools. Started out, martial arts is where I started out for the past good 25 years. But now, I'm in a public school now, and I teach math. And, I want to get into a presentation on the difference of what we call white science and black science. Now, I want to be clear. When I say this, I don't mean that, 2 times 2 is going to be different in Kenya than what you get 2 times 2 in Shanghai. It's not that. We all know that the derivative of x squared is going to be the same in Britain and Cameroon, Venezuela, and the United States. All right. So that's not what I mean. So when we talk about this, we're talking about their approach and their reasoning for doing the science. That's what we mean. And I'm not the first person to come up with this at all. I'm building off of what, our elders have been talking about. And the notion that science is universal has been one of the hallmarks of white supremacy. It has been one of the most successful ways to spread Eurocentric thought around the world. For this presentation, I want to show that, yes, there is such a thing called white science. We don't usually think of it as white science because most of us have been educated in the Western style schools. So we just call it science. And we've been taught that it's universal. All right. So, like I said, this is nothing new. A lot of the elders have been talking about this. They mention this in a lot of their works. And I was baffled by this as well a good 25 years ago when I first heard Amos Wilson mention it. But it took me a while to understand what they was talking about. And I think maybe because a lot of our elders got their degrees in a lot of the social sciences and not the hard sciences, that this subject was never tackled. Okay. So science, we all know what science is, was considered science is knowledge, investigation, observations, experiments, scientific method, make your observation, ask questions, your hypothesis and your experiments, and get your results. Pseudoscience, we know what pseudoscience is, but today it becomes a term that everybody uses because they don't like something. So they call it pseudoscience. And we know that if it goes against what the government is saying, then, it's called pseudoscience. Amos Wilson, the brother Amos Wilson said that, yes, there is such a thing called science, white science.
And yet you have classrooms still with general and introductory psychology written by white men and women, and think you're learning something it's a neutral, non-political psychology. No such thing as a neutral and non-political psychology. There is no neutral and non-political course in this institution. And I'm talking even about physics, mathematics, and computer science. I heard some joking the other night, there is no black chemistry. There is no black physics. Lies. Because you must understand that chemistry and physics and mathematics and all flows from the consciousness and mind of man. They do not exist apart from that. That science flows from the political and social and economic organization of a people. Science does not pop up in the minds of geniuses. People must exist in a particular political, social, historical context in order for science to develop and to flourish. And unless you know the historical, political context in which science is created and motivated, you will not create science. You will then educate some people who can think in science, and then those same people will be used by your enemies to destroy you and your children.
So I hope you guys understood that. Science wasn't just something you found on an empty island, you know what I'm saying? It was something that was created by people. And that's what we have to understand. Our ancestors did what we call sacred science, And for most of us who've been to rituals, who've been to the ceremonies, we've seen stuff like this before. And things like this baffles the mind of Westerners. So they call it pseudoscience. They're like, what is that? But this is the sacred science that our ancestors was doing. And I'm saying this is that type of science that we got to get back to. From Dr. Luyaluka. In his book, The Scientific of African Traditional Knowledge, he says, in a world dominated for 6 centuries by the scientific and technological prowess of Western materialistic culture, African traditional knowledge seems to many to be unscientific or illusionary. And that's how we look at it, because we grew up in a Western culture. All right. Marimba Ani. Dr. Marimba Ani says the same thing.
Their work was not using the African worldview. And they said, what do you mean, what African worldview? Which African worldview? And what that was implying was that, you got all these different languages, all these different groups and so forth, so that we couldn't talk in terms of an African worldview. My work has all been to show that I don't care if you are practicing a Khan, if you are practicing Ifa, Ewe, Afa, whatever, or what language you speak or what part of Africa you come from, is that there are certain consistent principles in terms of how we conceive of reality. And that is basic to African culture. So what was happening was, if we go back to colonialism, now we got neo-colonialism, is that the Europeans were coming in and studying African culture. They were defining it and seeing it in terms of a European Western worldview, which meant if you use their definitions, what we do makes no sense.
Exactly. So when we look at African traditional science, it makes no sense because we're looking at it through Western lenses. I'm gonna skip through some of these because I'm not trying. I want it's kind of sound long, but this is a paper, an essay by Nana Jacob Carruthers, Science and Oppression. Really, really, really good. Recommend checking it out. He just basically goes through and saying how you want to use the same tools that they oppress us with to free ourselves with. And funny that he quotes Carter G. Woodson in this essay too, who said the same thing. And that was over 90 years ago. Carter G. Woodson said the same thing. It's crazy. Objectivity and Urugu. Mama Marimba Ani goes through objectivity, showing you how objectivity is a myth, created by the Europeans to spread their nationalistic culture. Western science denied spirit. They don't believe in spirit being spiritual, and spirits and all that stuff is, they say that's pseudo. That's Westerners. That's how they look at it. Okay. All right. I just wanted to go run through that to show you that this idea of white science is not my idea. It's just something I picked up from listening to the elders, and now I understand what they mean. All right. And now let's get into what actually is Black mathematical science, Black science, right? And the key thing with this is African philosophy. You have to study African philosophy. If you're not looking at African philosophy, if you're not reading African books on philosophy and their view of the world and how they saw the world, then you're not going to understand it. A lot of people that I've been seeing who do presentations about science, all their references are Europeans. They use European scientists as their references. That's it. They don't use no African philosophy. And so I'm saying you have to start to use African philosophy the way you start to view things, and then you can see it from a different perspective. Again, from Dr. Luyaluka, he says, until today, we must recognize that our academic philosophical training is modeled on Western philosophy. All our thinking has been structured by the philosophical paradigm inherent in Western culture. It is important to emphasize because to come out of this dominant philosophical paradigm would be by itself a feat in history of human ideas. We all, like I said, we all got our degrees from a Eurocentric university. We got our certificates from a Eurocentric educational system. So we think the way they think. Dr. Amos Wilson
Because we
mentions this.
often hear black parents say, I want my children to have the same education as the white children. And of course, I rail mightily against these archaic concepts, such as same education. We must get rid of that concept. Equal education is another concept that we should get rid of. They are destroying our minds and our ability to form a true education for our children. I often indicated there's no such thing as a standard education. To a very great extent, the kind of troubles we see our children in today are the result of the fact that we have accepted European words and definitions and seek to operate within the confines of those definitions.
Okay. I should have mentioned, I'm an Amos Wilsonist. Yo, so I really, really love Amos Wilson's work. All right. And I believe in, you know, what he had to say and everything. So like he said, we live by the definitions that they put forth. And we're not living by the definitions that the ancestors, our people, put forth. All right. So what is Black science? And it's from Brother Dr. Kamalu, from his book, Foundational African Thought. For African science is not merely an objective material science. It is a science that recognizes the existence of spiritual forces. Now, in Western culture, that's pseudo. Oh, man, that's pseudo, man. But that's what Black people do. It's not what white people do. It's what Black people do. And who's to say what we do is pseudo? We can't keep letting them define what is and what's not. You know? The scientific paradigm, a major difference between African thought and Euro-Asian thought is the distinction between complementary opposites and dichotomous diametric opposites. That's the distinction. Our ancestors recognized that there was a difference. There are opposites in everything. It's dark, there's night. If it's cold, it's hot. You know, if it's wet, it's dry. You know, everything exists in opposites. So if you got the physical, then it must be also the spiritual. This brother say the same thing about that. And I'm going to go to this one. Black Philosophy of Science, again by Dr. Kamalu. For Africans have adopted through the Western system of education a science, at least, which has evolved out of a culture which is not our own. This is why I can say it's white science. Because what today we call science developed from a culture that's not African. I ask you guys this, all of you guys who disagree and who keep saying, yo, science is just science, man. Math is just math. I ask you guys this. What were Black people doing during this scientific revolution from the 1500s to the 1700s? What were Black people doing? We was fighting for our lives. We didn't have a say in this development of this scientific ways and methods. We didn't have an input. We was fighting, man. We was trying to make sure the kids survive. Trying to make sure we survive as a people. So we had no input into this foundational thought of what is science. I mean, if I'm wrong, I might be wrong. I might be wrong. I don't know. I might be wrong. Spiritual realm. Again, you know, this is from this paper, Understanding African Philosophy and African Spirituality. And he's going into, they're going into talking about, you know, how people acknowledge the spiritual world. It's what we do. It's who we are. All right. And think about this. Y'all don't find it funny that every other group of people on the planet, the Africans, the Asians, the Chinese, Japanese, the Southeast Asians, the indigenous people in the Americas, they all acknowledge the spiritual world, except for one group of people. Only one group of people let that go. Y'all don't find that funny? I think that's weird. But anyway, following European dichotomous perception of the universe and its focus on matter as the ultimate nature of reality, Western science limits its field of investigation to the physical, to the field of the visible, the palpable, and the empirical. So in Western science, you only investigate the physical. You don't look into the spiritual, because for them, that is not real. This is from Brother Asong, and this is a good book. And I say you got to start reading books on African philosophical science. It'll change your mind. It'll change the way you think. And he says, Africa figured out the issue of Ama, the creator, from a different perspective. The truth about Ama and how Ama can be approached. On this matter, it is interesting to read a copy of the scribe mathematician Ames, which gives evidence of the mind refinement that reasons on the issue of Ama. Correct method of investigating nature to know everything that exists, each mystery and all the secrets. Again, the scribe from ancient Kemet said you use mathematics to investigate the mysteries and the secrets of the universe. This is what our ancestors have said. Modern science is in line with sacred science of ancient African Nile Valley, whose main approach was based on the development of speculative physical principles, which later became philosophical and religious codes of life. Aman, Atum, and Ra, etc. So you have to understand that African spirituality is not a religion, it's not a belief. It was based on science, their observation of nature and the universe. And then they formed a spiritual religion, for lack of a better word, to come together on. That's what they did. This is from Brother Dr. Zulu. This is also a great book. He talks about cosmic knowledge. When you ask the ancestors, where do they come from? They say we come from the cosmos. That's where they say they come from. They come from the stars. And Eurocentric paradigm versus the African paradigm. And this is from Dr. Luyaku's book. He shows you, he's saying that the Eurocentric way of doing science is to only investigate the physical realm, exclude the spiritual world. Whereas in the African way of thinking, you would do it all, physical, spiritual, and the ethereal. You do not separate. It makes no sense to Black people to separate the spirit from the physical. That's illogical. However, because we all grew up in a Western culture, we think it's logical. Black science is basically pseudoscience. That's what white people called it. During the 3,000 years of Pharaonic Egypt, there was no natural philosophy or physics that was separated from religion, myth, and magic. During the whole dynasties of ancient Kemet. This is from Marshall Clegg's book, Ancient Egypt Science. They didn't separate science from the spirituality. And I've heard people say that, as they got more advanced, they separated, science from the spirit. They didn't do that. They didn't do that at all. So I hope I was able to lay a basic foundation of what Black mathematical science is. It is a science and a research that's combining the spiritual realm and the physical realm together. This is how our people approach doing science. This is their method of doing science. But because we grew up in a Western culture, and because the Europeans have dominated the world for the past 600 years, everybody thinks and leads towards their way of thinking. Again, from Dr. Luyaka, he was saying, basically that the investigative science is the spirit and the physical. And the this is the Ashango bone. I put this up there to show that we've been doing mathematics for a long time. The Ashango bone and the Lubombo bone both display prime numbers. And if you ask any mathematician, any person who does math, they'll tell you prime numbers are like the atoms of mathematics. From those, you could build and branch off into other areas. So our ancestors were doing recognized prime numbers, and it goes back, 35,000 years ago. Okay? And I got this from the brother Bangura out of his book, The African Mother Tongue and Mathematical Ideas. He was quoting Goninger, where he was saying that from the, I think, Lubombo bone, you get a 365-day year calendar with the notches in the bone. It adds up to 365 days. Again, 35,000 years ago, they recognized this. And on this one, again, he was talking about the Lubombo bone again, and how it's 25,000 years old, and you could do, getting the prime numbers. Now, I found this paper by Christoph Born, The Secrets of the Ashango Bone. And he's talking about, both of the Ashango bones. There are two of them, but we usually only hear about one, but there are two that they found. And when you put them side by side, he's saying that it makes a double helix. You put the numbers, the prime numbers side by side, it makes a double helix. Which was kind of, I was like, that's interesting. Again, 30,000 years ago? If this is true, that means that the ancestors recognized the double helix within us. But how could they do that? Again, science and spirituality combined. Interesting thing about prime numbers. When you graph prime numbers, they make a spiral. What's that spiral look like to y'all? Looks like the galaxy. But how could they come to this understanding? Spirituality and science combined. Also from the Ashango bone, he's talking about the, in this one, he just talked about a decahedron. You could get from, the numbers when you put them together, it makes a decahedron. The Mancala, so from Bangura's book, The African Mother Tongue of Mathematical Ideas, he's quoting Hilbrock, who's a German mathematician, I believe. And he said that playing Mancala, the computational level gets up to what we consider the gamma function and the hypergeometric function. This is the type of mental computation your brain gets up to, because you start to, I think he means the gamma probability function and the hypergeometric probability function, because then you start to, you making moves. The probability of you moving here, getting this space, the probability of that person, your opponent, doing this in this space. So he's saying that the computational level, the way you think, is equal to the gamma function. This is a German, mathematician, and you don't hear any pushback. When white people do these analysis on black mathematics, you don't hear a pushback on it. So, and remember, Makala, the game was found in Kenya, 10,000 BC, carved into the stones. So we know that this is an old game. It's ancient. It is ancient. All right. So the advanced mathematics and ancient Kemet. When I say advanced mathematics and ancient Kemet, what do you guys think about? What comes to your mind when I say advanced mathematics? What comes to your mind? If somebody says, yo, the ancestors, man, they was doing advanced math, yo. They was doing that advanced stuff. What comes to your mind? What do you think about? Or what questions would you have? Their advanced math and advanced science you're looking at right now. Their ability to leave paintings behind that lasted 4,000 years. Western culture, you can't do that today. You can't paint nothing. That won't start degrading in 50 years. Tutankhamun's helmet that you're looking at on the screen was welded together. I just found that out like 2 years ago. I didn't even know that. That helmet is welded together, and it's done so good that you can't see the weldings. You have to put it under X-ray machine, which is that's an X-ray image to show you the welding of the helmet. So they were doing a lot of advanced science back then. But because we grew up in a Western culture, we tend to think that advanced science didn't come along until the Europeans started doing advanced science. And I'm saying that's not true. Again, from Dr. Zula, Sacred Knowledge of the Desert. Just talking about the cosmos, hidden knowledge. This is from Karina Rossi's book, Architecture and Mathematics in Ancient Egypt. And she's in her book, she's talked about, the structures had double meanings in the structures itself. It just didn't mean just a pyramid or, whatever they built. It was a double meaning, and some hidden knowledge was left behind. And we know this, from Suarez de Luz book, Temple of Man, where he talks about the Temple of Luxor represents the body of man. And the Eye of Horus, I'm pretty sure you guys have seen all this as well, where it represents a geometric series as well. Okay. And the Ankh as well represents a point at infinity. From a math perspective, that's what the Ankh also represents, a point at infinity. So from Temple of Man, in the introduction, he says, when the ancients considered the process of mathematical multiplication, their mode of calculation had a direct relationship with the natural life process as well as metaphysical ones. Suarez de Luz calls this mode the principle of the crossing. This crossing was not a sterile mental numerical manipulation, but a symbol for the process by which things enter into the corporal existence. So the math wasn't just doing math just to be doing it. They understood there was a connection with the physical and the spiritual. African mathematics, spirituality. So now the question is, if they knew that there was a connection, then how do you model the spiritual realm? How do you represent that? And again, we're talking about a people who were not influenced by the Europeans or the Arabs. A people who grew up in a purely African-centered worldview. So if you growing up as a kid and you watching your parents pour libation and you going to the rituals and you watching your parents got the altar and praying and this and that, you growing up, you get initiated. And that's another thing. You have to remember that not anyone could just learn, could go to school. You had to be initiated to go to school. You just couldn't just go. So you get initiated into the system and you start to learn. You're going to ask yourself, how do I represent this? How can we represent the physical world? How can we represent the spiritual realm? These questions you're going to ask because you're a math person. You're going to wonder, how do I model this? How can I build a mathematical model to represent the spiritual realm? And I'm telling y'all, you're looking at it right on your screen. It's not mine. I got this off the internet. I don't know who made this, but there's so many mathematical constants inside of the pyramids, the Great Pyramid especially, that you can't say it's a coincidence. There are too many. You got phi, you got pi, you got the square root of 2, square root of 6. You got the Euler's constant, Euler's number is in there. Do you guys understand the probability? The King's Chamber is equal to what? Pi times 10, I think. The King's Chamber is equal to pi times 10. The probability of constructing a building and have a room in that building equals pi is impossible. The probability to construct a building and have the sides of the building equal square root of 2 is impossible. Because these are irrational numbers. That is impossible. So when they constructed the pyramid, it wasn't by just sheer, luck. They just guessing at it. They sat down and they did the calculations for everything to equal and come out this way. This wasn't just happenstance, people. They worked on this. This is their science. This is what they left behind for us to let us know that they were, advanced. How do you model the spiritual realm? Complex numbers. And for all you guys who remember Algebra 2, I believe, you get into complex numbers. How do you represent, the spiritual world? So in complex numbers, you have what's called imaginary numbers. Now, this is my claim that I'm making. Okay? This is my claim. So an imaginary number is like when you have x squared plus 1 equals 0, like I have on the screen. And you want to solve for x, your solution becomes x squared equals -1, or the square root of -1. However, what multiplied by itself is going to give you a negative, because -1 times -1 is just 1. There is no number you could multiply by itself, squared by itself, and get a negative. Okay? There is no number for that to happen. And so what happened was that they created imaginary numbers. You come up with I squared equals -1. It's called imaginary. So it's real and is not real. And so what I'm saying is that the ancestors had an idea of this. They didn't call it this, but they had an idea. Because we know they was working with polynomials, quadratics and polynomials. We know that they was working with those. So eventually you're going to come across negative numbers. All right. And we're dealing with the people who are doing mathematics since what? Go back to the Lubombo bone, the Shango bone, 40,000 years ago. And we supposed to assume the highest they got was algebra. It's a lie. In his book, again, volume 3, Ancient Egypt Mathematics from Marshall Claggett, among the most intriguing arithmetical problems found in ancient Egypt mathematical documents are those that seek to find an unknown quantity when a sum of it and one or more of its parts are specified. Parts is specified. This includes cases when the sum includes a negative term, because we're told that negative numbers didn't come up until people from India or the Greeks, was Diophantus, I think, but no. He's telling you he's seen mathematical documents where they deal with negative numbers. So on the complex numbers, when you deal with complex numbers, this is the interesting thing. Complex numbers do not map to our dimension. We live in the third dimension. You can't map complex numbers to the third dimension. They only map to higher dimensions. Okay, the fourth dimension and above. They don't map to our world. All right. Complex numbers, they have the form of z equals a plus ib, where a is the real part, b is the imaginary part. Complex numbers do not map to the third dimension in our reality. Okay. It's another one talking about complex numbers and how when you graph the complex numbers, it makes a spiral coming up off. Think of the table. It makes a spiral coming up out of the table. Okay. That one, and here. This is from a mathematician, Michael Barr, and he's talking about mapping complex numbers. And he explains this is a paper. He explains to you that you can't map complex numbers in our dimension in this paper right here. Okay. And so if you go down, we go down and we look at, we look at number 6 and number 7. Yeah, number 6 and number 7, where he's explaining, he's going through it. Now, if I go through this, it's going to take up a lot of time. So I'm not going to go through it. I just wanted to show you that this research has been done and it's proven that you cannot map complex numbers to the third dimension. They only map to the fourth dimension in higher dimensions. And he says it, and you look at number 8, he says A is a fourth dimensional because from above, number 7, where he says A prime is equal to X, but X is an element of A such that, sigma of X equal negative X. And he's going through that where A equals A prime plus the reals, and he's showing you how you write it right here. So you have this inverse mapping from A prime to the Ri, to the real, to the imaginary. Is an inverse mapping going back and forth. So you end up having a 2-dimensional A prime plus the Ri 2-dimensional, which gives you 4th dimensions. So it skips over the third dimension. All right. So basically, Complex numbers cannot map to third dimension. They can only map to the fourth dimension. Why I'm bringing it up? Because, like I said, the ancestors had an idea. They didn't call it complex numbers. They didn't call it imaginary numbers. They probably called it something else. But they had an idea of the fourth dimension. Because what? They understood spirits. They understood that spirits live around us. However, they don't live in our dimension. They live in a different dimension. A fourth dimension. This is a fourth dimensional cube, a hypersphere. From Richard Gilling's Mathematics of the Time of the Pharaohs. On page 91, he talks about the Reisner papyrus, and it describes how to make a jewel pyramid. To make a jewel pyramid, you have to turn the pyramids, the tops, in on itself. And you make, not jewel pyramid, jewel pyramid to make this cube. And what does that cube look like? A fourth dimensional object. So again, we can't say that they weren't thinking about fourth dimension and higher dimensions. All right. They investigated the spiritual realm. Because you grow up pouring libation. You talking to the ancestors. So you understood that there's a different realm that exists. And this is just an article on calculus in the old days, in the early 900s. Actually, this is from one of my professors when I first went to UDC, when I first went to college. He wrote this article. And so he's showing you that in, I think, 900, the year about around 900, in Cairo, at the University of Cairo, they were already working on calculus, what we call today calculus. All right. Long before Newton. You know what I'm saying? So this is a good paper that he wrote from Marshall Clay. Again, many students of Egyptian mathematics have singled out the fundamental importance to its whole structure of the concepts of doubling, halving, fractional multiplication, because we know that they was good with fractions, right? But there are other fundamental concepts that emerge from an examination of the documents that stand out. The concept of quadrature. That is the reduction of curves, figures to 2 or 3 dimensions to figures bounded by straight lines or planes. So he's telling you, look, we found other things besides fractions and doing multiplication. They have concepts about curves being bounded by straight lines. For all you guys who took math, what does that sound like? What does that sound like? Calculus. Calculus. Let me tell you, in order for them to build those pyramids, to move 10 tons and 20-ton stones, they weren't doing that with basic algebra and trigonometry. You had to know calculus, differential equations. And when you study calculus, to find an area under a curve, this is how you do it. You divide up that area, and then you add up. This is, when you first learn how you do it, this is how you do it right here. They tell you to divide it up with rectangles, and then you add it up. From the 3rd dynasty in Saqqara, they found on the wall a curve divided up into rectangles, different values. Now, I'm going to admit to you guys, he says in his book that, they don't know what this represents. It could be a sphere or ellipse or whatever, but they don't know. He says it. Karina Rossi says it in her book as well. And I found another paper that talks about it. And again, they don't know. They just saying, hey, it could be an ellipse that they was dividing it up and stuff. Why? They don't know. But let me say this to you. As a person who studied mathematics, there is no other reason that I can think of for you to divide up a curve besides trying to get the area under that curve. And that's what we call today calculus. So yes, again, you have to take off your European, Eurocentric glasses and start to think from an African point of view. We're talking about a group of people who've been studying mathematics. I'm just being generous and saying, 40,000 BC. People coming up from the south of Africa, Central Africa, coming together to formulate Kemet. 36,000 years. And we're supposed to think that only the furthest they got in math is only algebra? No, fam. No. A particle in a box. Now, again, I think this all will come out when I explain it at the end. A particle in a box is this is what we study in physics. When you are studying the energy of a particle that's contained in two walls, in a well, and you just want to get that frequency of that particle that's right there. Beyond these walls, you don't care. You want the energy level right there in between it. This is what we call a particle in a box today. And then you do it in 3 dimensions to find the same thing. Now, I know y'all saying, I'm geeking. You're going to say I'm geeking, yo. You geeking. You tripping. But nah, man. A particle in a box. The King's Chamber. No one can explain to you why that sarcophagus or that box is sitting in the King's Chamber. No one. There's no reason. So I'm making the claim myself that is a physical representation of what we call a particle in a box 4,000 years ago. Because the frequency of the room, as I got written right here from this paper, the frequency in the room ranges from 30 hertz to 130 hertz. That's inside of the room. However, inside the box itself, the frequency only goes to 117 hertz. That's a particle in a box. What else could it be? Again, I could be wrong. I don't know. This is called the Schrodinger equation. This is the equation you use to find the particle in a box. And what is the Schrodinger equation for? It is to measure how quantum systems changes over time. It provides a way to predict the behavior of quantum systems of these atoms. So you're measuring how atoms changes over time. You're trying to predict the way, you're trying to predict how these atoms behave. Again, like I said, The ancestors did not do just things one way. They did them both ways. Okay. So what would they use to describe, how systems predict over time? How would they talk about this? And you all know this, but you never connected the two. Knowing the creations of Ra. Knowing the creations of Ra talks about how atoms changes over time. I created myself and I expanded in it. I created everything that I wanted to create in this universe and I expanded in it. I tied my own hands before I was born. It is describing the atoms in the beginning of the universe, Satepi, that singularity that we call today the Big Bang. They called it Satepi. So they had an understanding of what we call the Big Bang, that singularity in the beginning of the universe. All mathematical myths of human origin start either from an egg, a spiral, or a vacuum that undergoes vibration due to cosmic energy. And when you read the stories in the different spiritual systems, they all start like this. At least most of them all start like this. So, how did I come to this? See if I can do this real quick. How did I come to this? How did I come to this understanding? As a person who likes to do math, I like to do math. And, when I'm bored, I sit around, I brush up on my skills to make sure, I'm still doing stuff. So basically one night, I was working on complex analysis problems. And out of this book right here. And, hold up. All right. Out of this book right here. And so this problem right here, excuse me, this problem right here I came across. And it's, you got to evaluate this integral. So I'm going to do this real quick. You got to evaluate this integral from negative infinity to infinity dx over 1 plus x to the fourth. Okay. I should have had this already up. My bad. Hold up. Pull this up. My bad. All right, so you had to evaluate this integral, right? And it axes to where are the poles of this this function? I want you to find a pose. And the pose are the singularities, all right? Where are these singularities at? That's what it's asking, okay? Go here real quick. And so this function, come on. So, all right, actually, let me move that. This could have just left up there, but I'll just move that. I'll just do it over. All right. So the function was, here we go, real quick. Integral of what? Negative infinity to infinity of dx over 1 plus x to the fourth. All right. Find the singularities. When we find singularities, we have to move it to the complex plane, right? So it becomes f of z equals 1 plus x. No, I'm sorry. It's supposed to be z. Z to the fourth. And we solve it for z, right? So z equals 1 plus, no. Sorry. All right. My bad. So move this out the way. So I meant to say z is going to equal negative 1. This is z to the fourth. Z to the fourth equals negative 1. Solve for z. We want this to say z equals, right? We want it to say z equals. So to do that, what? We got to do what? Take the fourth root of z to the fourth, right? Handwriting is bad, my bad. Over here, fourth root as well. What you do on one side of the equation, you also got to do on the other side of the equation, right? All right. So now the problem says z equals negative 1 to the fourth. So that's what you want. Now it asks, yo, where are the poles? Find the poles. And the poles are the singularities. So we put this on the graph. The imaginary axis, remember we're in a complex plane, and the real axis, okay? So this problem, this function right here has poles at, it'll be here, 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 okay? And these poles equal 1 plus or minus negative I over square root 2 plus negative 1. Plus or minus 1 plus or minus I over root 2. These are the poles that are on the for that function. So you have your plus 1 plus I over root 2, negative 1, right? This is negative 1 I over root 2, and negative I or negative 1 negative I root 2, and 1 plus negative I over root 2. So these are the poles. All right. This is what this equals right here. Z equals the fourth root of negative 1, and the singularities of that is this right here. So I don't have to solve, I'm not going to evaluate the integral. Don't have to evaluate the integral because I'm just stopping here. So here it is. And for this to be valid, for this to actually to be valid, the angles right here all have to be equal. Okay, and so then you can say that this is valid. Now, where am I going with this? What are you looking at? This right here. What are we looking at? This object right here. You're looking at an above view of the Great Pyramid. I'm going to say it again. You're looking at an above view of the Great Pyramid. Let's go back to it. Sorry for my squiggly lines. I was trying to make them lines straight. I couldn't get them straight. I couldn't get them straight. My bad. The Great Pyramid, as some of you might know, has 8 sides. Why? Why did they build an 8-sided pyramid? What was they trying to say? You could barely see it. You could see the crease a little bit right here in this picture, but you could barely see it. But it's right there. During the daytime, you could barely see it. Here's another above view. And this is what I'm saying. This is my claim. I'm saying that we are looking at a real life geographical representation of Z, the fourth root of negative 1. This is an above view. You can see all the 8 creases. And all those angles are equal to each other. You're looking at it from above. Where is square root of 2? I showed you from the diagram earlier. Square root of 2 is where? Down at the bottom. Here's another above view. As you can see, you don't see it during the day. The only time you can see it, which I find interesting, is at sunrise and sunset. That's the only time you can see those creases. Sunrise and sunset. During the day, they don't show. Why is that?
Right. So if you look at the structure itself where you're seated, that there is a lot of...
This is Brother Abadale Cambone.
The reason why I have 8 sides...
Forgot to put his name on it.
Classical chemist, for example, you have the notion of the 8 original natural. That's Amen, Amen, Nun, Amen, Head. That's what's carved in the front door, which is made out of one solid piece of mahogany. That's the 8 natural among the Dogon. They talk about the 8 original Nomo. If you go to the Basonge people of Congo, they talk about the 8 original ancestors. If you come to the Akan, you have the 8 matriclans. So you find this, proliferation of the number of 8 being quite significant. So that's why we have the 8 sides there.
So that's why it's an 8-sided pyramid. I'm missing a slide. My bad. But that's why it's an 8-sided pyramid. Because it's a representation. They're showing us. They are physically showing us a representation of the spiritual realm. I'm mad. I don't. Hold up. I can put it up right now. Bam. Here we go. No. Bam. All right. What did they say? What did I just say? You can only see it as sunrise and sunset. Ra comes up out of what? The spiritual world at sunrise, goes back into the spiritual world at sunset. And that's the only time you can see the creases in the Great Pyramid. So they're physically showing us that it is a representation of the spiritual realm. This is a physical representation. They built it to show us that. And the 8 sides represent those, the primordial beings in the beginning. Those atoms, those quarks that we know, that we call today the quarks and the fermions in the beginning of the universe. That's why it's 8 sides. And the funny thing, let me tell you another funny thing. When you take particle physics, when you look at particle physics, if you want to represent the 4th dimension, it's a triangle. All right? It is a triangle. From Feynman's diagram. The 4th dimension is a triangle. And that's how you represent it. The gauge loops, because what D equals 4, and you have 2n, and you solving for n, and you get 2. But your gauge loops, you add that, and is 3. And so you end up with what? A triangle. So what I'm saying is that our ancestors had a great understanding of the spiritual realm, and their science represented that. For them, they didn't just look at science and excluded the spiritual world. They looked at the physical world and the spiritual world combined, and they built a civilization, a great civilization, off the knowledge that they gained from the spiritual world.
Right.
And this is a great thing I learned from Dr. Zulu in his book, The Secrets of the Desert. He says, Western theory of matter is particle-based. The Basotho together with other Africans, believe that matter is fluid-based. Now, remember, they didn't discover that particles are wave-like until what? The early 1900s, right? Or that was 1800s. This means that matter was wave-based and have wave properties. This entails with the Basoto regard any material in the universe as fluid based on the subject of the laws of fluid dynamics. And then he demonstrates in the language how when they talk, they're thinking of fluid. It's already, the language is designed around fluid talking. Like, you know what I'm saying? We go to a barbecue, like, yo man, go get you a plate of food, man. They get food over there. They would say, yo, go get you a plate of food. They pouring out food over there. They're going to pour out some food on your plate. Go get you some food. You know, they don't say, I'm taking the trash out. They say, hey, I'm going to go pour the trash out. And he shows you through the language, they already think fluid ways. Now, this is the thing. Because when you talk about advanced mathematics and chemin, usually people always say to me, then where's the technology? How come they didn't do technology? Where is it at? And that's a Eurocentric point of view. Because when you have a Eurocentric philosophy as your foundation, your applied math and your applied science leads to artificial technology. It leads to you creating an artificial world that comes directly from Plato. Remember Plato, was it Phoebus? Or I forgot what book. But he talks about, the perfect world only exists in the mind. That's their perfect world. It leads to an artificial world. Now, when you come from an African-centered point of view, your applied mathematics and your applied science is going to lead to a natural technology, an organic technology. This is why they can't find the tools that they use to build and cut those stones. Think about the shaft, those shafts inside the Great Pyramid. They're perfectly smooth. Perfectly smooth. There are no jagged edges. What did they use? They used an organic technology. Because if they use something artificial, that would go against Ma'at. They didn't go against Ma'at, remember? So for the ancestors, polluting the land, polluting the air, polluting the ocean was a no-no. But for European culture and European science, it's okay to pollute the waters and pollute the air because you're making progress. This illusion of progress. So like I said, it was an organic technology that they used, something natural that didn't pollute, the environment. And they can't figure out how they have these sarcophagus with perfectly holes drilled into them. They can't figure it out. That's because they use something organic to do that work. And so I'm about to bring this to an end. Excuse me. And I want to bring up Amos Wilson in his book, The African-Centered Consciousness, where he says, we are following a group of people who are obsessed with death. Every advancement in knowledge is an advancement in the ability to kill, destroy the earth, kill, destroy nature, kill and destroy others, rape and rob the earth. That is the Western way of doing science. You think of destructiveness. It doesn't matter how many people you kill, as long as you made $1 billion. They don't care. Where's the big thing now? Artificial intelligence. Even though artificial intelligence said it's going to kill humans when it becomes conscious, they don't care. Why? And we're all caught up in this. because we all graduated from a European, Eurocentric university that says this is the way you do science. You exclude the spiritual, you focus on the physical. And the result of doing that is a world that's artificial and surrounded by death. So I'm going to finish this talking about deformation of a contour, fam. That's why I'm going to end this off at, okay? So deformation of a contour is a theorem in complex analysis. And it says, if f of z is analytical in a simple connected domain D, then the integral of f is independent of the path, provided that the paths are all connected in D. Okay? If the endpoints of a path C are fixed, and if we continuously deform C to another path C prime with the same endpoints, then the integral of C f of z dz is equal to the integral of C prime f of z dz. As long as all intermediate paths between C and C prime contain only endpoints where f of z is analytical. That's the theorem for deformation of a contour. So what is my point? What's my point? So it said, it said the integral of f of the integral of C, right? C f of z will equal the integral of C prime f of z, right? dz. I forgot to add my dz. You get in trouble for that. They be like, yo, that's wrong. All right. So what is this saying? What is this saying? Again, let's let me draw a graph. Let's draw the plane. Let's have a plane. Here we go. So this is our C. Yeah, that's terrible. That's terrible. My bad. So I can make that a little better. Yeah. Here we go. All right. This is my C. And so it's saying that then I have another path here. You have another path, which is your C prime. Okay. And so it's saying that, as long as this is differentiable here, meaning that it's analytical everywhere here, we could take C prime and we could push it into C. So we could take C prime and we could push. My pen needs to be lighter, heavier. We could push it into C to where it becomes C itself, where they are identical. Okay. So if I do this, here we go. Maybe a little thicker. Let's make this a little thicker. So if I do this, so we take the domain, and this is I'm almost done. I'm almost done, fam. I know you're like, this Bama sitting here doing math on Sonetta TV. What the hell? I'm almost done. I'm almost done. So we're gonna take. So if I take C, and if I let, that's still not even heavy enough. We're gonna let this one be. So think of it as this one is a square here. That's Uh, so this is my C. This is be my beta. Okay, and we're in this domain. The domain is this plane. This plane. Let's say that's omega. This is your domain. So basically, what the theorem says is that deformation of a contour is that you could take B. I could take this square here and I could deform it. It's a square, but you could push it as long as there aren't any singularities. This square will become C. Okay, so that's basically what the deformation of a contour is saying. So what's my connection? What am I saying? The domain is Western culture. Beta is black people. C is what? The crackers? No. The Caucasians. You know what C is? And so throughout the years of living in Western culture, living amongst the Europeans, we have become just like them. And I got this idea by listening to Robert Baruti when he gave a lecture on how we have become them. We've adopted their morals, their values, their customs. Our behavior is reflective of Western culture. So we have become like them. And as Amos Wilson has said many times, the major problems in the Black community can be traced back to our behavior of imitating the Europeans. So I'm showing you a mathematical analysis of what he was saying. As long as the path between B and C is analytical, then we deform into being like Europeans. But what if it was analytical? What if we did have here, this space here, this space here? What does that mean? What is that? If we had that Black consciousness, that Amos Wilsonness, the John Henry Clarks, then B, the triangle cannot deform into C because these are points that are analytic on its path. They stop the deformation. They stop us from becoming like the Candace Owens and the Yvelle Carnets and the Henry Louis Gates. They stop that, and we become more like Malcolm X, Amos Wilson, Francis Cress Welsing. You know what I'm saying? So this is why the study of African culture, literature, philosophy is important, because it helps us to stop being like the Europeans. It helps us to maintain our African-centeredness. That's why it's important for us to keep studying and centering ourselves, grounding ourselves with African philosophy, first of all. So yeah, that's my presentation. So basically, what I wanted to show was that our ancestors had advanced knowledge of mathematics. However, their advanced knowledge of math don't lead to artificial technology. It led to organic technology. Okay? This is why the pyramids were built out of limestone. All the temples were built out of limestone, nothing artificial. And when you look at what's the brother Ron English, I believe, is his book on black science. But when you look at a lot of books and they talk about when Europeans first came to Africa, when they first met them, they spoke of how clean it was. You know, I'm talking about in the 14 and 1300s when they went there, how wide the streets were. They had not paved, but they had streets. They had buildings that were 2 stories high, 2 stories in the ground. Their knowledge of advanced technology was not something artificial. Their streets were just regular streets. It wasn't paved. It wasn't artificial. The artificialness is the European way of doing things. But once we tap back into that spirit of the ancestors, we're going to surpass the Chinese. And
all right, brother. Let me first say, congratulate you on the House of Consciousness, the first go round, and I think you did a real good job. The people in the chat rated you; they gave you a 68%. On a scale of 1 to 10, they gave you a 68%. That's passing. I think you did great. Shout out to my brother Roy Bayman. Islam to you, brother. Good to see you, man. How you doing, brother? Look like you dropped off some weight and all that. That's good. Good, man.
Yes, sir. Peace, God. Can you hear me, sir?
Loud and clear, brother.
Yeah. As brother Captain Tazariak once said, so I fell back on some of the pork and the ham, but we ain't going to get into all that. You understand me?
Right.
First of all, brother Sonetta, peace and love to you, God. You the elder. Much respect due to you, King. Always good to see you and a pleasure to be on the platform. I want to speak to that brother that just demonstrated. I think the 68 he got was underrated.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
I think that was underrated. They shortchanged him. No, sir. No, sir. That brother has to get 85 minimum.
At least, yeah.
At least. But the reason why I believe he sincerely got 68%, though it's within the margin of passing, the HOKs, first go around as you just demonstrated. But the reason why he got that 68%, and I think it was sincere, is because the listening audience was not deeply in tune, or is not deeply in tune with the science of that subject matter and what he was just presenting. He was presenting the philosophical, esoteric, metaphysical, and mathematical spiritual breakdown, a part of ancient Egypt and the knowledge of Kemet that most of your best Kemetic teachers don't go into. I'm talking from Infudishi, Shaka Almos, Jabari. They don't go this deep like that. Okay? They don't get that deep. And it was very important. First of all, my good brother, thank you for sharing that demonstration. I have been studying similarly on the same track that you just spoke on just now. So when I came on, I said, oh, wow, I don't even have time because I got to go into a Zoom meeting in a few of myself. But I had to sit tight like a Jew with $1 in his hand just to come on and give you your props and just do. You understand? Well, here's what I want to add on to what the brother was talking about, right? When he was talking about those dimensions, in particular the 4th dimension, and before the 4th dimension, there's also a 3rd dimension, which is the 3D dimension, which is the physical world that we live in now, right? But that 4th dimension is very important and very serious. Let me give you a little story here. When you deal with a brother like, they called him Thoth, right? And he's mentioned in the book called the Emerald Tablets, right? Thoth and Ra, they were said to historically have developed a great knowledge or came in contact with a great knowledge in ancient Kemet. And they was trying to get people to comprehend this knowledge in ancient Kemet, but the people could not comprehend it. After many, many millennia in passing, one individual was able to latch on to this great knowledge. And that individual's name was Osiris. Okay, hold on a second. His name was Osiris. Osiris and thought they all knew of this knowledge. They gave this knowledge a name. The knowledge was called Christ consciousness. Okay. It was called Christ consciousness. And it was a way to demonstrate the resurrection as well as the ascension. Later, you'll find the story in the Bible. Jesus, he represents that resurrection. And when you go into Islam in the Quran, Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, peace be upon him, he represented the ascension in the Quran. Now, this knowledge had to be passed down. There were two individuals in ancient Kemet who was well known during that time, male and female, named Tai and I. They started to come in contact with the knowledge. They was able to live on for long periods of time until one day they realized they were still alive. And they realized they had cracked this code on what was called Christ consciousness. One of their sons named, or their followers named, who later will be the Pharaoh Akhenaten, he understood the knowledge too. He had a son named, in fact about it, was Pharaoh Akhenaten, who said that everything he saw in ancient Egypt, he would write it down and bring colors of life to it. He was largely responsible for a lot of the hieroglyphics in ancient Egypt that had these colors on them. So he was looking at our people that look like you and I right now. But he had a son named Tat. Tat, he took on some of this knowledge. The people that followed him were called Tattaleans. Okay, they were called Tattaleans, and he developed this brotherhood called the Tattalean Brotherhood, or what some would call they had a different name for it as well. But the brotherhood that he developed in ancient Kemet, this is how they started to develop these mystery school systems. The law of one eye, Horus, the right eye, the left eye. This is what the mystery school system was all about. This was a part of the curriculum. And what my brother was just talking about with all the math, that was called sacred geometry. That was one of the aspects of it. It was called sacred geometry, and what was called the flower of life by the different cultures, so the years went on, they had different names for it. But the Tattaleans formed the brotherhood, and in that brotherhood, it was largely 60% women. One of the females who was a part of that brotherhood, she would later show up in the biblical context as a woman named Mary, who would later be the mother of Jesus. You follow me? So when they had went underground to hold this knowledge and to make it sacred and to teach it to the chosen few, they then got with the Coptics in ancient Egypt when they re-emerged from underground, and they was then called the Essenes. Mary, now, she ultimately passes on this knowledge to the guy that they would later be called Jesus. See, Shaka Amos and them, they don't tell you. They say, well, Christianity came out of Egypt. But I've yet to hear one of our great Kemetic teachers demonstrate the chronological sequence with reference to how this story came about in some explicit details. We just gloss over it by saying it came out of Egypt, but we don't go into these details as to how this Christ consciousness came about. Jesus was the individual, who would enter the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension has different realms in it. One realm is the 10th realm, the other is the 12th realm. That's when you are outside of the 3D world, the physical world that we are currently locked into now. And when he took on that dimension in those realms, he became the Christ. This is how he got his name or his title, Jesus the Christ. So for the Hebrews out there who have a contention with ancient Kemet, for they say they was in bondage under the Egyptians, if you calling on Christ, you are following a Kemetic teaching. This is all Egyptian knowledge. Anything that pertains to the name Christ is all Kemetic knowledge. Our people, I give us a lot of credit. We have studied, aspects of this topic, but we are still babies in this ancient divine science. And we're coming of age in it right now, but we still must understand with all the knowledge we have procured, even Sheikh Anta Diop, when it comes to the knowledge of Kemet. And everybody has to come through Kemet. Hebrews, Moors, atheists, You're not going to have no type of authentic scholarship with reference to our ancestors or the universe if you don't come through Kemet. Now, even though they said the story of Atlantis, that was Plato's demonstration, well, guess what? Even the devil tells some truth from time to time, because there's some truth there in that history in relation to Kemet. But again, it requires more time and more study. We're still learning. Always remember, no matter how said he would tell you something like he's got 30 plus years under the belt. But 30 years, you had to study for at least 40 years in ancient Kemet to be classified as an adept and a master. Okay? You had to study inside that mystery school system before you can go on to understand this powerful knowledge. So what he was talking about, my good brother, that's something that we got to bring back to the table more often than what we do. And we have to do more studying so we can enlighten the people so they can understand the inner workings of this structure called pyramid, how it relates to the stars and the ethos, how it relates to the heavens, how it relates to the inner workings of man. This is how we crack the code of European psychology. And as Brother Dr. Amos Wilson did mention before, we have took on their characteristics. And I was speaking to a brother just today. He's an African brother, and they were saying, well, the Black Americans, they like to say,
all right, Roy. You see, my man Armin Rob McCarthy said, brother, Roy, whose show is this, brother? Whose show is this?
Oh, this is the mighty HOK, House of Consciousness, son of the TV. Right. I thought you knew.
Yeah, there you go. So, no, he was just saying this so you can take a breath and let the brother come in.
Listen. So I get long-winded real quick. I gotta go anyway, but I wanted to come on.
You, brother. Good to see you, and happy you came through, brother.
Yes, sir. All right, y'all. Peace and love, y'all.
Peace and love.
All right,
my brother Hercules, King Hercules. You want to respond to anything or?
No, he was on point. I understand what he was saying.
Okay. All right. Let me go on over to my man Elder Suntan. Elder Suntan, what's up, brother? How you?
All right, what's up, side peace, man? I've been missing the shows, brother.
Nah, I ain't been going live lately,
Oh, that's what it is.
Dealing with some things, a lot of stuff on the side.
Right. I was just wondering. I thought I'm missing them because I did get a notification today after I clicked on it. All right, that's cool. Brother Hercules, and peace to Rakufu, and peace to my brother Roy. My whole premise right now is, what do this profit us as just regular individuals who's not so deep in the study? Because the mathematics is devastating for a lot of minds. Not saying that it's out of their realm, but what I'm saying is they may have intention to do anything. So my point is any of these things that you discussed, because I like what you was discussing because I was able to follow it. But the thing is, do you have to follow this? What is the premise of your presentation for a regular layman as myself?
So basically, my premise is that we have to get back to combining our science with the spirit, because we were the ones who mastered that. As you can see, the Westerners, white people, they can't do what we do. Despite all the technological advances they have, they still can't build a pyramid. And all the pyramids is just block on top of block on top of block. That's it. There's no cement, no nails, no nothing. So even the Japanese can't do it. The Chinese can't do it. So our ancestors showed us their geniusness by connecting to the spiritual world. They was able to create this great, magnificent marvel that's still standing 4,000 years.
Have you seen the pyramid?
No, I do plan on going. I haven't been there yet. No, sir, I haven't been there yet.
Okay.
It's a goal of mine.
Yeah, I would just peace to you. I was just knowing that what you're saying is deep and it takes study, because a lot of people can't even do regular math. I used to be good at math when I was in grade school. Now math is away from me. So what you're saying is kind of, devastating to the mind of somebody who don't know math. They'd be like, well, if I can't do this, how can I understand? So you follow me?
Yes, sir. I understand.
All right.
And that's not an issue, because what like a person like me is trying to explain is that we already our ancestors already understood advanced mathematics, whereas the Westerners, if we keep listening to Western culture, advanced math didn't come along until white people brought it along. But so I'm saying, and I'm showing you, like, look, we already are doing this already. You know what I'm saying? And it was in a form of so they showed us a form of science and mathematics that was connected with the universe and deep trench in my art that didn't damage the earth. Whereas Western culture, we do mathematics and science, and who cares if the oceans is polluted, the earth is polluted, people get killed from products, it don't matter. So that's their way of doing science, as long as you're making this scientific progress forward. And so I'm saying that, look, there's a better way, and let's get back to this better way. And for those of us, for me, I guess I wasn't always a math person, but once I became that person, it's for people like me that's going to go in this field and lead this way, because I'm putting forth a different way of thinking. Not new, but a different way of approaching it. And I've been looking for Black people, Black scientists that think the same way. And I came across a lot of brothers on the continent that have written books that talk about this. And they talk about, we got to get back to doing this. And so there's a small movement of Black people where we're starting to, let's get back to that spirituality and science combined. So, I mean,
I just remember your name because I see you trying to be a pioneer. Is that correct?
I guess. I guess so. Yes.
Yeah. So I just remember, because it takes somebody to lead with this sort of information and to teach it. So thanks a lot. I'll just keep on listening.
Thank you.
All right. All right. To my brother Rakufu. What's up, brother?
Oh, okay. Peace to the family. Leave me up real quick. So I want to say excellent job to the brother. And this is some books, brother, I know you probably read, but these will be very good on your journey. Sheikh Anta Diop, Civilization of Barbarism. The Pale Fox About the Dogon System. Very good read. This was like years and years of research from two French scientists. You did mention the Lubbock's. I got two of his books here.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And last but not least, my favorite, one of Diop's students, Dr. Finch.
Mm-hmm.
The Star of Deep Beginning, Genesis of African Science and Technology.
Yes, sir.
Real good reads. What I wanted to ask was, in the sciences that the ancestors did possess, like you say, the spirituality played a major part, which I agree, and I meditate as well under the Ra'u Nefer Amen Asar Set Society's meditation, system. But you have to open up certain passages, breathing techniques, and get into the rhythm of chemistry, so you won't be in an Egyptian state of mind, I should say.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to ask, how do you feel about the meditations and the chants, the rhythm, like basketball or something, being on one accord with the team, African conscious, aware people, so that we can elevate and manifest greatness again?
Mm-hmm. Yes, great question. Good question. Okay. Sorry, hold up.
You can take me off screen, Sa. Go ahead.
Yeah, for me, I'm very familiar with those books. Great books. I grew up watching Dr. Clark and Ivan Van Sertima and them. My dad made us as kids watch this program called For the People that came on back in the day. So we had to watch that program, and we had to be able to say what we learned from watching that program, or that's how my dad was, yo.
That's right.
So I was very familiar with those books coming up. As a teenager, I read them and didn't grasp them that much until into my 20s, and I started to reread them, going over. So those definitely some good books. I trained in martial arts as a kid coming up as well. So when it comes to meditation and understanding how to do meditation, it was something that I was familiar with.
Yeah.
It was something that that as a kid, even though as a kid, we used to just fall asleep. We didn't know what we was doing, But it wasn't until I got older and I started getting to meditation, with my instructor, going into deep meditation, understanding what deep meditation is and how to do it, and the breathing techniques and all that stuff. So for me, I understood right away when I read. There's a brother, I can't think of his name, but he wrote The Tree of Life and Meta Nature. He wrote the book Meta Nature.
Is that Muada Ashby?
No,
I think Muada Ashby wrote The Tree of Life too.
The Tree of Life. Okay, I think that's him. I forgot. It was so many. It was long. Long ago, man. I read that book. About 20. The Meta Nature and The Tree of Life. I read that in about 2005, 2004.
Oh no, I think you're talking about Ra'u Nefra Ahmed.
Yes, Ra'u Nefra.
Both of them. Okay, yeah.
I read that book, learning, and when he was talking about, all that, this understanding the soul and the spirit, and understanding how it comes together, and you're connecting with that next dimension in the universe. It was something that connected with me because of my martial arts training and what my teacher would talk about. Stuff that he would talk about, because I came up in a traditional Korean karate style, old school style. So we was deep into understanding how to heal the body, herbs and medicine, doing meditation,
the energy, chi,
understanding all that stuff. So so definitely, as a person, as people, today, for me, what I feel, I'll say this. I feel is Western culture is killing Black people. That's how I feel. Yep. Western culture, European culture is killing Black people. And I say that from you just look back, just looking over the history of not just the diet, but the behavior of what we're learning in schools, how our kids are coming out in schools. The thing, I'm not gonna talk about Umar, but we have to let go or separate ourselves from this culture.
You could go in on Umar if you want.
Sorry, mad at
you.
We have to separate ourselves from Western culture. And I know, a lot of us not going to move to an African country or a Black country. So we have to start thinking like the Amish. The Amish are separated. So we could separate ourselves, though. The people, we have to come together and build a community where we are that foundation. We are promoting our kids in the school, and the entertainment and all that is African centered. We have to separate ourselves from this culture, because we're not going to change it from within. It's not going to happen. This is only my second year. This will be my second year teaching in public school. My first year, I seen it. I seen how, the teachers, it's just like, hey, ain't nothing going to change. You can try to talk to the kids all you want, but as long as they got that ignorance at home and that ignorant culture at home they embrace, they're going to come to school, and we only literally had 10 students out of the whole grade that passed. The rest of them, they just pushed them along. Just 10 of them who deserved to go to the next grade. And most of them didn't want to learn. Wow. So this whole notion of we're going to get into the system and change the system from within hasn't been working. And we can look at it from about the 60s. A lot of Black people have been working in the government since the 60s.
All right, let me say this real quick. First of all, brother, thank you once again. And I'm thanking you because you brought on, you talked about Dr. Amos Wilson. And Dr. Amos Wilson is forgotten over here. And we gotta keep these names alive. I'm glad you brought him up, because the clip that you played, brother, is what I say all the time, man. And what I say all the time is, when I be having these battles with these Hebrews and they talk about Blackness and how degrading Blackness is, I always tell them that we got the power to define. And that's what Amos Wilson talked about. We got the power to define our own stuff. our own words. So of course there was a bunch of racists that talked about black and they talked about how bad it was, but when it came to whiteness, they talked about purity. They talked about golden, and then at the end of it, and Judah said no, but I know Unc remember this, and I know Suntan would remember this, but at the end of their breakdown of white, they said as in a Caucasian. How many of y'all remember that? When they broke down the definition of black and degraded, they said as in African American. How many of y'all remember that, man, in the dictionary? Y'all don't remember that?
Yep, I was there.
Yeah,
They talked about how black was so bad and ugly and and all of that. And then they say as in the African, right?
Yep.
Right. That's the way they tried to frame
And
it.
when they talked about white, they talked about how pure it is.
How
And
pure.
you know, and as an angel cake, an angel food cake.
Pure
And then they said as in a European. So I was trying to tell Judah Naz that, brother, those were racists who gave those definitions, brother.
That's right.
You know, we got to define our word. And that's what the brother played, the clip of Amos Wilson. I got to go and get that drop. I got to get that, brother. Please send me that in my email if you can. If you can.
One more
Now,
thing.
hold on, brother. Hold on. At 9 o'clock, I want everybody to know. I just dropped the link in the chat, and then I'm going to bring on Unc. At 9 o'clock, this is only going to be on the HOK Coliseum. That's why I told y'all to go and subscribe to the Coliseum, hit the likes, hit the links so that y'all could get notified. This show will only be on the Coliseum channel. And you know what we're going to be talking about? It's going to be if there were no God, there would be no atheists. I don't know if Unc agree with that, but I think I agree with that. If there was no God, there would be no atheism, the self-delusion of Coke. So we're going to deal with that. We're going to deal with that. If there was no God, Unc, you wouldn't have a reason to be an atheist. So that's what they said.
Okay, if it wasn't holy, they saying since it is a God, that's why we're atheists.
Right. So is atheism a religion, Unc?
Of course not.
Okay, some people say it is, and so we're gonna deal with that. And now, Unc, let me let you know. Be easy on my brother, man. This is his first time in the House of Consciousness, brother. I see you got your pseudo gun ready.
Get him up. Get him up. I want the people to get a copy of this.
All right, go ahead, brother. You got the floor.
It's the Pygmies. We're our compass. It's a Bantu and Batwa in the history of West Africa, early times to 1900s. Get that. Good read for y'all. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Good joint. You know, I always do a good work show. I don't do nothing that's crazy. Y'all see everything in the backdrop right here. This is what we're doing. You already know you smell though, bro. Like, yeah, you do a pseudo. I want to talk about how only white people is pseudo, but our stuff not. You said something. What was that statement? Clarify that for me, Mr. Hercules.
Which
master?
Which one?
You say something that only white people could be pseudo? Did you say that? Practice pseudoscience? Did you say that?
No. I said they say that we practice pseudoscience.
We who?
They say that black people, African ancestors practice pseudoscience.
No. First, you gotta have something has to be. If you look at the definition, something has to be trying to represent science, but actually not. That's pseudoscience.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. According to Western definition of what science is, what traditional African people do or traditional black people do is considered to be pseudoscience. According to that's understand what I'm saying is that that's their definition, but that's not black people. That's not the African people definition. That's not their definition. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so the definitions. Are you saying that was constructed, right? But that's actually a Greek word, all right? Pseudo prefix that's actually come from the Greek word, but it still applies. So when you're talking about African spirituality and African social systems, anybody that say that pseudoscience, they're pseudo, because that's not true. It has to be acting like it's representing science. for it to be pseudoscience. There's no way around that. And so we never classify religions as pseudoscience. Now, if a person try to say the Jesus Christ walking on water is scientific, that's there you go. And then try to prove it with some kind of scientific measurement, then you can say that's pseudoscience. But a person religion just their cultural beliefs. That's it. It's not right. So we got to get that straight. So what African peoples was practicing, early Homo sapiens sapiens, hunter-gatherers. Hunter-gatherers all do the same things, basically. Food, clothing, and shelter. That's it. Right? Hunter-gatherer, they're hunting and they're gathering. Right? Hunting big game. Okay? And they're gathering food sources. The gathering was by the sisters in the community. They was gathering the birds and the fruits and the youngins. All right? That was our staple. The big game, you can go out and try to catch big game for 7, 8 days with 10 people, come back with 5. The big game that ate them might not come back with a meal. But we always had a staple of small animals, berries, nuts, fruits, plants. That's always, there richly. The meat is sporadic, right? Because they're hunting is serious. You hunt it or be hunted. It's not just as easy we want to make it. So, but as far as the cultural understanding, people, they misrepresent that all the time. That's on both sides, though, right? And it's important for us to know the difference and recognize that African spirituality is just as serious as Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. I've been fighting that the whole time, okay? But I'm still atheist, meaning that I don't believe that there's a controlling mechanism that human beings can just access at a whim. In the middle of a damn football game, scoring a touchdown. God did it. See? In slavery. So I never know what I'm about to say, right? When the slave master prayed to Jesus Christ and God, right? And the slaver prays to Jesus Christ and God, who does Jesus Christ and God help? Yeah, so there you go. It's a conundrum right there. So we need to recognize that. And so for me, right, I'm a science advocate. I advocate for science. But science, like you say, son, that ain't a white or black thing, right? It's a universal language. It's a thing that all humans, it started in Africa, moved to Asia, early times, right? This foundation. So everything is based off of foundation and steps, right? And so I want to make this clear. That's why we don't tear down all our elders, right? Because if you tear down all your elders, then what are you standing on? And then we don't even know what is meant by standing on somebody's shoulders. So I always say I stand on the shoulders of Dr. Ben, right? So if I'm standing on the shoulders of Dr. Ben, I can't be at his damn feet. I'm sitting at the feet of the masses. I'm not sitting at his feet or staring him in his face, repeating everything he's saying, whether it's right or wrong. I'm standing on his shoulders, meaning the things that he got right, I can stand on that because it's solid, right? And then I can see what he can't see. That's why I can correct it. So I'm standing on your shoulders. Now I can see more than you can see. You see, that's how science works, right? You cannot understand the cosmos without learning certain steps. One of the early steps in learning the cosmos, you find it not the player. Somewhere around 7,000 BCE, at not the playa, you got a cattle cult, okay? And these people were starting to chart the stars, at least look at the stars, and start to recognize when the monsoon rains would return back and forth. And they ceremonies based around that. Later on, this would end up in Egypt, where they could track, the flooding. Okay, so the early look into the cosmos is at Nabta Playa. But if you do not get Nabta Playa, you can't get to space. There's no, you can't just jump it. In this community, they all jump steps. They want to get there without taking the steps. They fight you like hell over the steps. Each step gets you to the next step. You do not, like Copernicus, right? You got to go through Copernicus, right? Copernicus recognized that the sun did not go around the earth. They introduced the heliocentric model. If you think the earth is flat, if you think that the sun goes around the earth, you can't get to the next step because it's counterintuitive. So us humans, right? How they say it, we not risen We're not risen angels. We actually fallen apes. I do that to get people roused up a little bit, right? We actually apes. All right. I know they're gonna act crazy. Look at I'm acting crazy. No, that's what we are, right? There's an understanding that comes with that. Okay, and so apes or humans, right? When you go outside, the earth looks flat. There's no way to understand the size and shape of the earth by just looking at it with your eyes. It's too massive, too big. So of course it looks flat. Okay.
All right, hold up, Unc. Let's give the brother a little chance to respond to some of that.
He went out. Got finished the part. Got finished.
Yeah, finish that part. Go ahead.
When you go outside and look at the sun actually looks like it rises in the east, right, and sets in the west, or whatever, which way, whatever go. But it looks like it's actually going around us, right, with your eyes. So it looks flat with your visual, and it looks like the sun is going around the earth. So early humans thought that. But if they can't crack that, if they can't figure out a way to realize that actually the earth is traveling around the sun, right? You can't move on to the next step. So go ahead, brother. I just think you jumped steps with the mathematics, and I know you did with the Egyptian mathematics. You dove. You missed the steps. But go ahead.
I don't know. I'll push back. I don't think I jumped steps, because what I explained in the beginning was that with Black people with traditional African science, they understood that there was another dimension, that there was a spiritual realm. Yeah. That's why they pour libation, they did sacrifices and all that stuff. They had an understanding of that because it was a part of their culture. Now and again, we're talking about a group of people that wasn't influenced by Euro-Asians, the Europeans or the Arabs. This came from a culture that they developed over thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. They developed this understanding that there is another dimension. There's something else there. And today we do that today. A lot of us, we pour out some liquor before we drink. What I'm saying, to honor our passing family members or whoever. This is just what Black people do. And so my point of my presentation was that we had an understanding of science is not just about the material, about the physical world that we see. Our ancestors, traditional African science looks at, we study the physical world. Why did that coconut drop from the tree? Why did that pineapple drop from the tree? You ask these questions, but then you also ask other questions like, wait a minute, what is the spiritual world? What is the spiritual realm? Wait, what was that? Why are you pouring libation? Why are you praying? And they seeing this stuff. You growing up in a society where you seeing this every day, all your life. So one day you have to ask the question, well, how do you represent the spiritual world? How can I represent that? What represents the fourth dimension? So I'm saying that they had an understanding of that. So from their perspective, they're looking at science, they're looking at spirituality, and they don't separate it. Whereas in Western culture,
good point,
because we grew up here in a Western culture, we see the logic in separating science from religion. Now, understand that religion and spirituality are not the same thing. They're not the same. Whereas our ancestors, their spirituality was based on observation of their of the ecology of who they live around. You know what I'm saying? Of the stars. It was based on science. That's what it was based on. You know what I'm saying? They you know what I'm saying? We talk about they prayed, they people like, man, oh man, they praying to the sun. The sun god Ra. Man, these people praying to the sun. If you ask the question, if the sun dies, could Jesus save you? If the sun dies, we all die. So it kind of makes sense. Hey, thank you for coming up today, son. I appreciate you. It's like, so they studied the world around them. They studied the universe, and they put together a system, a belief system that was based on actual science, not a woman coming from a man's rib. That I don't understand how that makes sense. So yeah, I understand I understand where you're coming from, brother. However, I would say that at the same time, we have to understand that sometimes we are looking at the world and that we are looking at our ancestors through the lenses of the Europeans, because we were educated by the Europeans. We weren't educated in the traditional African system. We were educated in a school that's based on Eurocentric philosophy.
Okay, Master Hercules.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. Can I ask Ankh a quick question here? Ankh. Now, when we dealt with, like you was talking about Naphtha Playa, before that, as you dealt with the hunter-gatherer period, meaning we hunt, we gather. Okay, I got that. So when we got to the star systems and started learning different stars and when they came out, would you say that's when agriculture became a part of it, where we could know when to plant something, know when to gather it, to get it, rather than just getting it simultaneously as we see it? If it ain't there, it ain't there. We got to just try to find something.
Yeah, I would like to add that farming can be looked at as actually crop failing, meaning the plants aren't growing as readily as they was. So you got to figure out a way. All right. And so everybody look at it as being this great thing, but it's back-breaking work.
Yeah.
So
would you say the stars played a part in it?
Oh. No. I'm saying so not the Playa, they start to be able to follow the seasons, track them. Okay. So right. And so that helped with farming. You can figure out, because if you don't plant at the right time, when you catch that rain, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Right. So see how their steps are?
Yep.
You gotta be able to look at when the rank, the plant, it's a step there, and so he's wrong.
So also, real quick, that was a step I called Ngozi because I couldn't get you. I called you first. I needed you on this show, and here you are. So go ahead.
No, Ngozi called me and said, "Yo, check in."
Okay,
so I got the message.
He told me he was gonna call you.
He did. He did that. Check in. So I'm checking in. So Hercules makes a key mistake here. His mistake is the thinking. He's right. Our ancestors didn't separate it, but that was the issue. The issue is that for 350,000 years, humans couldn't separate the two things. First of all, at 300,000 years, there is no science. There's a not science, though. It's proto. Okay? We would say proto-science. All right? 350,000, they couldn't separate the two ideas. Now watch this. Let's come to the here. All y'all have seen me. Let me pull this right here. I'm gonna show you where they started to try to separate it. Here it go right here. Right here. This is the atlas. The atlas of the human body, right? Okay, now they got source material in the back. Okay. So we had these conversations. We don't just talk. We do it. Y'all seen it, see? All right. Look. All right. Ancient Egyptian. So here, look. This is a reference. Okay, now watch. Okay. This is one of those attempts to separate your religion from your proto-science. It says the Edwin Smith papyrus, written in ancient Egypt script, 1,900 to 1600 BCE. Okay, it says is the earliest known, listen to me, the earliest known medical literature, okay, consisting of 48 case histories. It describes conditions, diagnosis, and treatment in a rational, systematic way for the first time in human history. So from 350,000 years, right, to 1,900 BCE, it took all that time to try to even begin to get rational, right? Being consistent, to separate that from your spookism, right? All that, and they hadn't quite did it because when you start to read, they consistent with it, and then on the next damn page they go right back to the gods right there. So that's like you going to the doctor's and he got a prescription, right? He write a prescription for you, right? But then he not sure if it worked. On the bottom, he put a scripture there, John 3:16. You get that? See how the two will work hand in hand is what you're saying. But in reality, right, the John 3:16 does not help the medicine work. And as long
it was
as
a placebo.
No, man, I don't know what you killed me with that.
A placebo, meaning it wasn't a word, but that healed you was the
All right,
process.
hold on, man. Let me get my man Hercules back in here, because I want to make sure he get his show in.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah.
Just rock with that for a minute. Just digest that for a minute.
So
you
yeah,
got to choose conflicting, but go ahead.
It's not conflicting, because as you said, they went right back to try to connect it to spirit to
they messed it up.
spirituality. However, that script that you read, the script that you're reading, I mean, is what? It's based on what? From
rational thought.
But no. It's based on coming from the European point of view of what rational thought is. Hold up, wait, let me finish.
Oh, go ahead.
Let me finish. It's coming from their definition of what rational thought is. So if you let someone like Dr. Luyaka analyze that script, read that script as well, he might come up with a different point of view and say, wait a minute, I can see the spirituality in what they were saying. I can see it, because as I showed the guy Marshall Clegg in his book, he said, he pointed out that throughout the whole history of Kemet, there was no separation of spirituality and science. They didn't separate it. Okay. So yeah, okay, we got that. You got that one point where they doing medical science and they explaining everything. If I'm going to explain to you how to set a bone, you know what I'm saying? I might not know. I might not say, I might include the deities or the rock, because that doesn't apply to how to set a bone or how to, how to heal a fracture. But I'm gonna just explain it to you straight in detail. But that doesn't mean that I let go of the deities, of the ancestors who helped me gain this knowledge. That don't mean that at all. It's just showing you that he's been straight and direct with how to do this medical work on people. It doesn't mean that they let go of the belief system.
Okay, and this is a dope conversation right here. I promise you. So I'm gonna come back to the literature again. Mm-hmm. This is the medical milestones. Medical milestones, same book, right? You know what a milestone is? It's a human achievement, right? And so on this calendar right here, right? Timeline. Look, it says 2650 BCE. Imhotep, one of the first physicians known by name and the father of Egyptian medicine, is born. It says surviving papyri indicate much earlier origins of Egyptian medicine knowledge, right? And then you get to the Chinese, you get that, but you need the milestones. And so you're absolutely right. Our ancestors had not gotten to the point where they separated the two. They can't get out of their way. It's not till later on. But first, you got to get this step right here. You got to get this step where you're trying to pull it apart. That's a step where you can get rational, right? Where you can have consistent case histories and diagnoses. You got to be able to do that, right? And then still have your spirituality there. Catch what I'm saying? That's a step. But the ultimate goal is to remove the spirituality and just deal with the data. Just deal with the rational thought. Just because the Babylonians, proto-astronomy, right? And astrology, okay? Stuff. They couldn't even know the difference. So they thinking that when the king is born under this thing, the stars aligned and affected it. That's a wild decision right there. Wrong is two left feet. The stars don't affect human behaviors, but they couldn't separate it. It's not till later on to the Greeks do that. In ancient Africa, right, they had astrology. All right. They wasn't there to date. No, my fault. Astronomy. The Greeks come in with astrology, right? Nabta was proto or pre-astronomy. Okay. So we ain't had that to separate. Okay. The Greeks brought that in. So our community be big up in the Dendera, but that's a Greek temple in Africa, in Egypt. The Ptolemies, right? We was dealing with proto-astronomy. Now, astronomy is a scientific endeavor, all right? based in math and equations. All right. But our ancestors, okay, once again, they had not gotten to this step where they separated. You know this to be the truth because the quote unquote the Assyrians came in and smashed us out. They came in with they were starting to use iron, right? After the Assyrians come in, right? Then you got the Babylonians, you got the Greeks, you got the Romans. Time after time again, if we had been able to separate that, right, then we would have been able to protect ourselves. So the spiritual piece is dope, but as long as you have it connected to your signs, dog, you done. Because the ones that end up winning in the end was the ones that could separate their signs. Your spirituality ain't gonna move nothing. If you got an intercontinental ship and know how to navigate the oceans and know how to make a sail, you're gonna beat somebody that's praying to Jesus Christ all day long. You're gonna beat somebody that's throwing down the leg ball or doing whatever they're doing. You're gonna get them every time. So
makes sense.
Have signs.
Right, so it seems like it makes sense. Again, it seems like it makes sense, but the problem is this: you're rationalizing your thoughts from a European point of view. So you're saying that because we're you're able to separate your spirituality from your science, original science, you're become more advanced. That's a Eurocentric ideology. That is not an African ideology at all. All right. I know. And so
I know.
And so we're looking at it. So you're looking at it because we were raised in the Western culture. But if we're looking at it from an African point of view, from the book, so from my understanding, first I'm gonna wait. Remind me to come back to Jesus and the Europeans. From my understanding,
write that down.
White people they couldn't penetrate into Africa to get slaves. They coerced other black people to go in and capture slaves, and do all that stuff, to sell slavery, because when it came down to the fighting, they would lose.
Who would lose?
So they used other African people to go in and capture slaves to sell them to them. They didn't do it themselves. All right.
Master Hercules, 1 second, real quick. Just because I want you to piggyback on what Ankh said. Did the temple, I asked chat this, did the temple of Het Horu have astronomy?
Hold up, brother, hold up. When you do that, you knock them off their square and they forget what they were going to say. I always say that. Allow the brother to finish. And of course, Ra Khufu, I will let you come in.
Peace.
Just write it down. Just let them finish.
I got it. Sarah wants you to put the link in so he can come in. I thought I sent that to you.
The link is up there. The link is in there. It's in the chat at the top.
Let me tell him. All right.
Go ahead, Hercules. Continue, King.
So I think a perfect example of this is Haiti, where you had different people of African descent, African nations came together in one spirituality. They combined their thoughts, they combined their energy in that one spiritual system, that one spiritual deity, voodoo, and they became undefeated. It came to a point where the Europeans couldn't beat them, and this was during the height of slavery, of the slave trade. They couldn't beat them. They had to coerce, use trickery to defeat them. And so the same thing, from what I understand from reading, if y'all could correct me if I'm wrong, from reading The Destruction of Black Civilization, it was the same thing. It wasn't no head-on-head battle where they lost. It was more of coerce and trickery to coming in to defeat these kingdoms and these civilizations. And when we talk about the Babylonians, the Persians coming in and defeating the people of Kemet, again, that was from the intermarrying and the again, like I said, I might be wrong from my conclusions of reading Destruction of Black Civilization, the intermarrying with the Asian women, the Asian wives and stuff like that, and weakening the kingdom allowed the Persians to come in. to where they dominated and took over. And again, we talking about at the time the Persians came in. This was 600, around 600 BC. So the kingdom, the civilization was what, we still got that 3,000, that 4,000 year that span. So spirituality has always been a hallmark and a cornerstone of African thought and African life, African systems. They saw spirituality as not just, you praying to the deities, you're praying, you're pouring libation, this and that, and you're hoping this and that. No. And another thing we have to remember is that people like Imhotep were initiated. These were like what? The higher priests. They were initiated, so they had that knowledge. Not everybody had that knowledge. You had to be initiated into the system to know certain things. So not everybody knew that knowledge. Not everybody had an understanding. There were certain levels. So the thing that brother Dr. Luyaka explained in his book, and as he goes into the spiritual system, he was saying how positive energy could only be used for positive things. So when they talk about restoring Ma'at, they got to go to war and put their enemies down. However, when you look at it, they also say, please forgive me. They tell you about, please forgive me. They have to, they got to kill these people and do this and that. But, they got to restore Ma'at. They know they got to put Ma'at back on the stone. So I don't see a letting go of your spiritual energy, your spiritual self as a positive and being more advanced. That's more of a European thought, the way of they looking at the world. And that's only because they're not spiritual people. They can't relate to the spirit like we relate. You know what I'm saying?
Why you say that though?
Wait, hold up, because I was going next. To both of you guys' credit, I did a search real quick on the Temple of Het Heru, have astronomy, and then Dendara came in with the Greeks later and came with astrology. So it say, yes, in the Kemetic ancient Egyptian tradition, there's a real historical distinction between the astronomy-centered role of the Temple of Het Heru, Hathor, and the latter more astrology-focused associated scene in the Temple of Dendara, though in reality, they're part of the same temple complex. So when the Egyptians was in power, they practiced astronomy. When the Greeks came in, they practiced astrology, or Ptolemaic, or the Roman era, when the Ptolemies came in, not the Greeks. And that's what you say, exactly. And now to Hercules credit, let me just say this to her, and I'm gonna get off the mic and let you go. To your credit, though, Hercules, and Ankh has backed this before. Like in a basketball game, we get in a certain chant, go Panthers, or we got a certain thing we say. That's kind of how religion is. It's like they practiced it to be in a certain mode. Like when Imhotep came in, he came in like a player, like he had whoop whoop and rah rah, and then here it comes. And it came. It was a rhythm. So it's almost like if we in the same team and we all got a certain thing we say to each other to boost our boost us up. So the religious part, the spirit, we shouldn't give up. We should hold on to laws and stuff. Like if Ankh was in the society of Ma'at, thou should not kill. That's a law. That's subjective. So I could be like, you say that, I don't say that. That ain't no sign. No, but it's still spiritual. And certain things we do honor our spiritual ancestral past. So both I like. Go ahead though.
All right. Let me I want to say this real quick.
Man, I had a point to make off of what you said, man.
You always say you got all right. Go ahead. Remind me to come back to that Christian.
No, I'm gonna make it short. You keep saying that just because you got to separate it, that we shouldn't have spirituality. I never said that. What I said was you have to separate the two, or else you can't move to the next step. That's exactly what I said. I never said that. Now, this is subjective when you say that they can't tell spirit. They made up the word spirit. White people did. Panyua. It's the Greek word for spirit, right? You got to go to the indigenous word on what they were saying, right? Ruach. The Hebrews, Ruach. That's the wind. That ain't got nothing to do with African people. So you got to dig a little bit deeper. But the point I want to make here, and I'm gonna drop it short right here, is I'm not saying that you don't got to be spiritual. I'm saying that you can't mix that shit. That's what I'm saying.
Hey, no profanity, but It do got something to do with African people. It do come from African people because that's how they learn it. So just because they have a different name and different terminologies don't mean it didn't come from African. So we was the only spiritual people in the world. So
and the
it
word
all,
spirit is cool.
all come from us. It do, my brother.
The word spirit in ancient Metal Netter is cool.
Hold on, yo, Rakufu. One mic, brother. Just because they changed the wording of it, don't mean it ain't come from us. They do that because they don't want people to see the plagiarism going on. So that's why they begin to change things. Just like in Kemet, just like Christianity and Kemet, they change certain things to make it look like they come up with it. But when you all the way go back to it, you'll see it comes right up out of Kemet, brother. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead. You can respond.
Just like the word voodoo means spirit. Go ahead.
So you're saying, no, it don't. It means no.
Hold up.
You got to know what it meant to them.
So
y'all hyper-diffusionists. Y'all hyper-diffusionists, right? You know what that means, right?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Hyper-diffusionism. I think everything is just one big culture on earth. And everything came from that culture. Yeah, that's wild, but go ahead.
That's not it. I mean, I ain't picking on that. So I'm saying, so you saying, so what you said, is separated and you can move forward.
Yeah, in science. I'm not saying in your life as a spiritual person. I ain't saying that. I'm saying in science.
In science. And so what I'm saying and what I try to show is that our ancestors, because they connected to the spirituality, they was able to do the things, they was able to move forward in the knowledge of science, and they did what they did. That's why they did a particle in a box. What we call today, the Schrodinger's equation. They already did that. You know what I'm saying? They already had that 4,000 years ago.
What?
So, yo, me and I already had this discussion about, calculus and ancient Egypt and all that stuff. So, and
how
again,
you gonna have calculus? How you gonna have calculus, though, before division, bro?
Come on.
They knew division.
Before 1, 2, 3 adding.
They knew division. So wait, hold up. So here it is.
But I'm saying you gotta, you know what I'm saying?
Come on, they already had that. They already knew that.
Oh, before show it. You can't show it.
I already showed you.
No, you made that up. You ain't really showing nothing.
In Saqqara, with the book, remember the book I showed you with Marshall Clegg? Yeah. Don't even try. Anyway, so we said, you were saying you can't move forward scientifically.
It's right. It's going to kill you.
Okay, hold up. So you're saying you can't move forward scientifically,
right? And what you see
without, you know what I'm saying, if you don't separate it. And I'm saying that they did move forward, and they showed us, they left us physical evidence of their scientific knowledge. And I'm saying that one of the most advanced scientific studies that we have today that came from the 20th century in the 1900s was, a particle in a box. And they already did that with the King's Chamber, a particle in a box.
You wild.
Wait, let me finish. Huh? If you know what I'm saying, if you look it up, and ask, what's the why is there empty sarcophagus in the King's Chamber? The King's Chamber, it resonates between 30 hertz and 130 hertz inside of the chamber. However, inside that sarcophagus itself, the frequency only resonates at 117 hertz. That is a physical representation of what we call today a particle in a box.
Man,
deep. That's very deep. Real brief. You said that voodoo was a Western concept and a Western concept, but the fine people of Benin say the word voodoo means spirit, God, divinity, or presence in the Fon and Ewe language. Who started voodoo? So how is you saying that we trying to hyper diffuse that word when they're saying themselves that's what it means?
No, why would they say that? Why is European religious and spirituality standard? How about that? You ever thought about that? Whenever you say, yeah, mean this. No, African people pre-exist Europeans.
Couldn't the Africans be saying, yeah, what you're saying in European is what we're saying before you said it? They could be saying that. You can't just say no. You can.
No, that's not it. No, God, no, it's not. They had their own understanding, and that's what I've been trying to say for years, bro. Like, if you God is a dramatic word, yo, dramatic tribes, mighty men. That's not what we were trying to convey right there, bro. You know what I'm saying? Think we polytheists. You know, everything is God, bro. Ain't Judaism, Islam, Christianity. They gonna think you crazy, bro.
Not when we say it the way we say there's the great animator and then there's animism. We're all animated.
You just said it. Hold on. You just said animism, right? That's not
animation.
Right. That's not Islam, Judaism, Christianity. It's not the same thing, bro.
They separate.
I never said it was. I never said that. I just said
God ain't animism.
They separate the differences. They separate the science, which is part of why they never they're not as powerful as the African culture was when it didn't separate the two. So when you separate the two, you do something. You say this over here happens because of this, but the psychology behind it is not included. And when you leave the psychology that's included with the scientific method, then you forget what got you there in the first place in a lot of cases. It's why I have some older astronomy books that have astronomy mixed with the astrology, because the astrology came before the astronomy.
You said what?
It's why the psychology is important, and you can will yourself to health often. And when you think bad things about yourself, your body tends to fail itself as well. So the psychology part is very important. And that's the part that they've always considered to be pseudo. But if you consider the psychological edge that you have, you wouldn't think it's pseudo. The only thing about some of the psychology is that some points are fictional. And when things are fictional, that's when we get into the pseudo. But if we get into a mythos or if we watch a TV show, what do? You go emulate that character. You emulate the Justice League all the time. And so when I had the debate with my brother Judah, I pulled these points out. I show you that, look, the doctor would encourage you to think that you're Heru. And when you start to think like Heru, you start to overcome your doubts about getting healthy again. And then they would also give you the medicine that was prescribed, and you willed yourself into being. The Europeans really didn't leave that out. They do it with Jesus now. And so Jesus made their atom bomb, if you ask Donald Trump. Jesus inspired them to do these things. So stop leaving the psychological edge as Africans out of the things that you create, and you will become more dominant again. But if you leave it behind, you're going to look at yourself like, oh, look, my oppressor has evolved past me, as we would say, huh? So if you think he evolved past you just because he made a bunch of weapons, that's not the case. The problem is we're African. We come from a loving culture. So we don't tend to make weapons of mass destruction or look to destroy people. Remember, we call the Greeks our children. They never called you their children. One, because you came before them. Two, they called you their teachers. And three, because we have evolved past destructive methods. But when you start to get destroyed, then you have to use some of those destructive methods. And if you had the weapons of mass destruction, you wouldn't be saying these things about your African culture, because you'd be in control still.
Okay, y'all sound crazy as hell. What I'm gonna tell you is the damn Egyptians got beat by the damn Assyrians because they had better weapons. On that, they had stone weapons. The Egyptians did. They came in there on and whipped their ass. No raw came, no nothing came. Y'all tripping right now. I'm not doing this. I'm not arguing with y'all.
Who won the battle with Kadesh?
The proof is in the pudding. I'm gonna say this again. The proof
Who
is
won
in
the battle with Kadesh?
No, you just trying to throw me off my square. The proof is in the pudding, right? Plain and simple. All right. The Assyrians was able to take Egypt It was the fucking the Nubians chased their ass out. All right, let's get that straight. Then they Pionkin them niggas. They empire, they had the largest empire. Their empire stretched all the way from Monroe all the way to the Mediterranean. Y'all tripping right now. The Egyptians didn't have the weaponry to keep them off their ass, yo. We gotta stop that. That's what we gonna stop. They were so spiritual they got beat. African Americans are said to be some of the most religious people on planet Earth. And look where our position is. We done fell. We damn near, we about to be at the bottom and start from the top now, as far as the wealth and the economics. We at the bottom. Underneath us is the Native Americans. The Mexican population has passed us now. Right? And we're the most spiritual. Why? Because when people are oppressed the most, right? They lean on religion. Rich person ain't staying in church all day because he got to get back to his business. A poor person be in church all day long, trying to wait for the blessings. I ain't want to go this way, but you forced me to. The only reason the Egyptians lost is because they had subpar weaponry. They would not use the iron. They got a sword, the meteorite, right? With some iron in it, they was able to craft a daggone dagger out of that, right? Right. If they'd have just kept working right there, yo, they'd have been in the game. But so I'm just saying it's right there for you to see, bro. So I'm tired of that spirituality. No, bro.
That's what I'm saying. That's what he was saying is that who is this? I don't know the guy. Some guy, Christopher or something. Some book he just came out with about that. You know, they was smelting. Was it
West Africa? They got smoked. They was smoking iron maybe 8,000 long time ago.
Oh, the knot culture.
Yeah, it was
long time ago, right?
Early. Yeah.
So the thing. So what he was as Asar was saying, you know, this was I remember John Henry Clark said this when I heard this when I was a teenager. He said that, you know, the ancient Egyptians had the knowledge to make, you know, gunpowder and all that stuff, but they didn't. And as a teenager, when I was growing up, I used to always think, like, why not? Only if they did it, like, damn, if they would have did that, man, we could have, they would have stopped it. But now I understand because that was not how they thought.
Untrue, Mr. Hercules. I gotta say this, sir. Shake on to Diop. Shake on to
Diop.
Yo.
One mic.
He made a mistake. I need to help.
No, you come in after that, though, brother. You help him afterwards. You next. Yeah, let him finish.
Let me finish. Yeah, then definitely correct me on it. Definitely correct me. So they didn't think in the process of, look, we want to create, like I said, they didn't go against Mayat. What? In my whole presentation, what I was showing you guys, they had advanced knowledge of mathematics. And what they did was they would not create something that went against Mayat. They didn't create something that was going to pollute the earth, pollute the water, pollute the ground. They didn't do that. For them to pollute the earth that's a sacrilege. However, for Western culture, you could pollute the earth, we could pollute the water as long as scientific progress. It's fine because you're going to make $1 billion. That's fine. You could kill 100,000 people, you know, off your product. That's fine. Long as you make this money. That's how Westerners think.
Question.
Wait, let me make that statement.
No.
I'm coming in right after. Hold up.
No, man.
No, hold up. You can't do that. Now, Sardis told me I can answer him.
Yeah, for what I'm saying is that for our ancestors, they didn't think about, look, I'm going to destroy the planet just to make a scientific progress.
This is crazy.
So what I was showing you, what I was showing in the presentation is that their knowledge of mathematics and science is just now, Western culture is just now catching up to. Because they already understood a particle in a box. They already understood wavelengths, waves and travels and particles. They understood it. And they built the pyramids to show us. And they left it to show you that, look, this is what you do. You don't have to destroy the planet. All right? So that's...
Okay.
They didn't know it was the damn planet.
Hold up, Mansa. You just said we didn't invent gunpowder. Yeah, we did invent gunpowder before China ever had gunpowder. Africans used to use gunpowder in the Osiris mysteries. Sheikh Hantadi, my source. African origins of civilization, myth, or reality. All you have to do is read the book. It's sourced up in the book where it tells you that Osiris festivals used gunpowder way before China. So we knew how to make gunpowder, and we did it.
But what was they doing with the gunpowder?
No, hold on, man.
making explosions like
Yo, y'all
fireworks.
gotta stop.
Wait, hold up. Wait, hold up. Let me.
man,
I want to hear
I
what he got
wanna
to say. Wait, I want to hear what he got to say. What was they doing with the gunpowder though?
It was a ceremonial ritual. Asar maybe can answer it better. Go ahead, Asar.
So that's what I'm saying.
Making the fireworks and explosions with it.
Ain't that simple?
That's what I'm saying.
Did you
They
hear me,
use
bro?
it. They wait. Hold up. Wait, hold up. They use it to you're gonna create to make this explosion and whatever. However, the Europeans use it to what? To make weapons to
They're
kill
just
people.
doing fire stuff with it.
It
Yeah,
was a
so
different mindset. It's a different mindset.
Hold on, bro. Listen.
but the thing is this, like people tell this story so wrong in the first place. They like, oh, and they came and they knocked you off, but that's not the case. If you have several wars over time with different countries, eventually you will fall off. So remember, even after we beat up Greece, remember we colonized Greece. That's how Greece pays taxes to Egypt. That's what the movie 300 is about. Finally, all those countries over there in Europe got together because they got tired of paying the taxes after Hannibal went over there and burned Athens to the ground, and they unified and they came to get busy with us. When the Assyrians and Cambyses came over initially, they got busy too. Yeah, that's how the history goes, in case you didn't know it. So when the Assyrians come over and Cambyses starts, remember the brother Psamtik, I believe is his name. He was married to his sister. And when they have beef with each other, they tell how the war goes. They say they slit her throat in a big thing of milk. The priests start to drink it. They lift their weapons, and that's how the battle starts. The Assyrians start rushing towards them. The Egyptians start rushing back at them, and they end up losing the war. But the Nehesi were who everybody called, because the Nehesi didn't have anything incredibly great weapon wise. They had arrows, and they were nice with shooting them.
So
So
we doing
nobody
that,
wanted
bro?
funk with them.
We doing that
That's
right
why
now?
they call them the great eye smiters, brother.
Listen,
Now,
man.
the only issue, Egyptians had bigger shields. They had the maces, which were wood, and they were starting to make bronze weapons as well. So that wasn't the issue. Even with the Hittites had to go to a standstill with the Egyptians, and then they made a treaty. It's the first treaty in history where two countries get together and squash beef. That's historical records
They was fighting a
that you
war,
should know
not the
when you speak
peaceful
on.
Egyptians wasn't fighting no war. Couldn't have
Yeah,
been.
Egyptians were. And then when we go back further,
So if
when
you don't fight a
Greece
war, why wouldn't
conquers
you want to have the
Egypt,
best weapons to fight a
watch
war?
this.
Y'all
When
just
Greece
crazy
and
as hell
Rome
right
conquer Egypt with their
war,
supposedly
man.
sophisticated weaponry, they run up on Nubia and they lose to the female Kendakis who kick their butt
Fact.
and walk them up out of there.
You know what,
So if
yo?
you're
Hold
going to
on.
tell the history, you got to tell the history right.
Okay, so listen, y'all got to stop playing, yo. The reason the Nubians
Don't
was
fake
so
punk.
serious because they had better bow technology than
Yes.
everybody else around them. What the hell is going on, man? They had
Yeah.
long range shit, man. They big, strong. The bows was shaped away. That was serious war technology. The oldest war on planet Earth is in Africa. And if the Africans had a thermonuclear weapon, they would have used it on people. Y'all wild out right now, yo. It don't even make no sense what you're saying. Think about it. You're saying that the object was to restore Ma'at. Am I correct in that? That is balance, truth, righteousness, right? But if your ass got stone weapons, you ain't restoring nothing with somebody with iron weapons. You can restore, get booted the hell up out of there. You can't restore my yacht. But if you're people that want to restore my yacht and you got better weapons, you can make people bow down and restore my yacht. Y'all tripping right now, bro. Africans led the way in war technology. Well, like, are we kidding right now? Like, I cannot believe y'all don't know this, man.
Wait, hold up.
Who made the chariot?
Don't hold on me. I'm on the roll. Hold on, bro.
Well, see,
I'm saying the first 2 million years of human history, Africans led the way. You can read it in UNESCO. And you don't lead the way not unless you lead the way in technology. Like, we can't keep doing this to ourselves, bro.
But can we help Asar? Can we help Asar with one thing? Asar said Hannibal had burned Athens to the ground. No, Hannibal never even went to Athens. Here's the historical breakdown. Hannibal Barca was the Carthaginian general famous for fighting Rome during the Second Punic War. His campaign took place mainly in Italy, Spain, and North Africa, not Greece, where Athens is. Hannibal never led an army into Athens, and there is no ancient record of him attacking or destroying it. So it's no such thing as he destroyed or burned down Athens. What is something you miss in there that you do know, but you saying it wrong, Osar? Can you help the people?
The original library that the Greeks had was burned down by Hannibal. Where did Athens get moved to after he burned it down?
You off with your time periods, yo.
All right, hey, hold on, y'all.
No, we're not.
Hold on, everybody.
Alexandria.
Everybody, hold on. I want to bring in the brother because I ain't got too long. I got another show to do at 9:00. Let me bring in Asar 7. Good to see you, brother. I ain't see you in a minute. What's up, Asar 7? What do you got to say, brother?
Peace.
Peace.
Peace to everybody on the panel. I want to tell the brother Hercules. I did enjoy his presentation. I do have some things to push back on him about. As far as when it comes to science and Black people and Western civilization, I don't think that our influence with Europeans spoiled our outlook on science, because we still have our spirituality, right? Slavery and our influences with Europeans didn't take the spirituality from Black people. We actually gave them some spirituality they didn't have, and they still taking that from us today. What you're saying is that Europeans, they'll take science and approach it in a different way than we would as Africans. Because even if you look through science and the history of it, Europeans got it from us, from Africans, right? They saw what, like you said, you went into the to Kemet and you saw all the mathematical equations on the walls. You saw all of the papyri. You saw all of the historical records of Greeks and other Europeans going into Kemet and learning these sciences and these practices, like Unc spoke on as far as the medicine practice with Imhotep. And then even when you come over here to the slaves, there were slaves that assisted Europeans who so-called invented things, right? But it was, you later on come to find out that it was actually either slaves who invented it or a Black person who assisted and did most of the work. So we still were scientists, no matter whether we were enslaved in Africa, separated from Africa. We still took that information with us over here. So yeah, white people might not use religion or spirituality in science, but that does not, even that fact doesn't say that Black people or Africans, without the influence of Europeans even coming into their lives, that's not to say that there wouldn't be no Africans that wouldn't be able to separate science and spirituality.
Why would you say
right?
that? Why would you say that? I never said that.
Why?
I never said
No,
that.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the other brother. No, I'm not saying you, Unc. I'm actually agreeing with you, Unc.
Oh.
What I'm saying is he can't say that Africans, just because they had an influence with Europeans, that they wouldn't be able to separate spirituality and science, or they wouldn't practice a form of science separate from their spirituality, right? To that rational thinking
They do
that
it now. They do it right now. Africans practice
exactly,
and not mix their spirituality with it. Like I can't do that.
I agree with you. So for him to try to say that Europeans influence on us took us away from being able to look at science the same way Africans did, I disagree with that.
Good point.
But I do agree that we do use science more morally and more connected with our spirituality. That's why we had access to gunpowder, like the brother Rakufu said. And so did Asians had access to gunpowder, but we never thought to weaponize them because we didn't look at destroying each other or the planet in that manner.
Not true.
Right?
That's what I was just saying.
Yeah.
No, that's
And,
not.
and
We don't we don't weaponize them to
Xerxes the
destroy
first
the
did.
planet
I know
or other people. Right?
Not
We
true.
never. You have to show me in history, Unc. If you disagree with me, you have to show me in history where we weaponized gunpowder.
Man, they didn't. Man, listen, bro. Listen. Because we didn't know what the hell it was. Simple.
We knew what it was.
One at a time. One at a
Okay.
time. I saw it. Let him finish. Let him finish, brother.
All I'm saying is, man, that's okay, bro. Somebody else got that. And how about the Hittites with the chariots? The Egyptians took the shit. They had
no profanity. I'm
good. You can, man, you ain't looking at new rules on YouTube. You can say a cuss word every blue moon. Yo, you good. You gotta relax. Read the rules.
Yeah, I know. I did. But true, I did see that. Go ahead.
But what I'm saying is they had 4-wheel chariots, right?
Uncle's right. I know where he's going.
Bump. You couldn't shoot nothing from the back. The Egyptian took it, cut it in half, modified, put shock absorbers on it. Then you had a horseman and the person in the back, because the shock absorber, put armor around it, you know what I'm saying, leather armor around it, and got a serious high-speed chariot, bro. So we gotta stop that, man. It's okay, bro. So we don't gotta have everything and do everything because we're humans. And guess what? The Egyptians were so serious because they had access to the Mediterranean world and they could bring different ideas in. See, sometimes having different ideas help you see what you can't see sometimes. Ain't nothing wrong with that. How you think Europeans, y'all keep saying Europeans did this, you did. No, what they did was they learned from different tribes, different people, and just added to what they had. And that's always okay. The way y'all want to do it is y'all want to go back to the daggone Stone Age. That's crazy. It's
going back to the Stone Age.
So a Stone Age person thinks that you keep your spirituality with your science. And I want to ask y'all this, right? Why y'all keep using the word science? Because y'all not talking about science when you got it mixed in. That's something else. Science, right, is based on not having anything mixed with it. That's what make it science. Y'all talking about something else, so stop using the word. You know why y'all use that word? Because y'all know it's power in science.
No, because I don't know the traditional word for science. That's why I use it. So let me reply. Before we get out of here, we say thank you, Brother Sar, for having me on, and thank you guys for coming through. Appreciate the pushback. And I would say to the brother who just said, brother seven Asar, right? You're looking at it through the eyes of Europeans. You're not looking at it through the eyes of traditional Black people. You're saying that there's no way to tell if they would have developed their scientific knowledge without the spirituality. And I would ask the question, which traditional African society lets go of their spirituality? Don't connect it, don't believe in spirituality at all. There's none of them, because they all believe in a spiritual connection to the divine, to the source, to the other dimensions. Okay, so that's why I make the claim that if Africa was not invaded by the Persians, by the Arabs and the Europeans, we don't know what could have been. All right, we don't know what technology they would have developed. If we look at today, the brothers and sisters over there right now that's using, the technology for today, you see them, they making batteries out of water. They doing electrical stuff, just using water and stuff. So our geniusness has always been there. So what I was trying to say is that if we connect back to that spiritual realm, it's going to amplify our geniusness, whether or not we using the European point of view or whether or not we go back to that strictly traditional point of view. It's going to amplify it, and they're not going to be able to catch up with us. We're going to surpass Western science and the Chinese, and we are it is critical for us right now to do that because of AI. AI is coming about, and it's about to wipe out everybody.
Let me say this real quick. I agree with Unc on the term of the gunpowder, that they didn't know how to use it. They didn't know what it was for. It ain't like the ancient Egyptians knew every goddamn thing, y'all. We got to stop that. They didn't know everything. And so you can see they going to war. There's many graphic pictures that you can see where he grabbing him by the head and he got the axe ready to chop his damn head off. So if they knew how to use the gun, they would have been using the gun. Unc is 100% correct. You go in there, type in ancient Egyptians at war, and you'll see all that stuff pop up when they had arrows and bow and arrows and they fighting. You know what I'm saying? So here's one right here that I'm showing you. I'm going to show you another one right here where they going to war. And Asar Khan knows this. He knows this. And I know Asar 7 knows this. Unc knows this. We all know this, man. So they wasn't no milk toast tipping through the tulips type of people, brother. They was going to war. They was going to battle. People was always coming in trying to take their goods. What you think? They just rolled over and died? Nah. Y'all forgot about Hatshepsut, where she had to lead and take over and act like she was the man and the king. They was battling, bro. So if they knew about the guns and all of that stuff and you know, what y'all was talking about,
they would have used them.
They would have used it.
No, hey, sorry, you made one clear. Wait, hold up, Asar, real quick, because you did say that you said the gun, you said the physical gun, but we're not talking about the physical gun, Sir. I'm saying, I asked the question in civilization, African origins of civilization. Sheikh Anta Diop in the footnotes, he mentions ancient Egyptian Osiris mysteries and gunpowder. Came back. At first, I asked him, did the Egyptians create gunpowder? Said no, where? Then I asked that question and says, you're absolutely right. There's a specific reference in Sheikh Anta Diop, the African origin of civilization, myth or reality, where in a footnote, he alludes to ancient Egyptian priests possessing the secret of gunpowder and using it in the religious rites like the mysteries of Osiris. Here's the exact excerpt from page 24 as paraphrased in a reading summary. Although the Negro had been the first to discover iron, he made no cannon. So he didn't have no gun. The secret, but he knew how to make iron. The secret of gunpowder was known only to the Egyptian priests who used it solely for religious purposes at rites such as the mysteries of Osiris. So I knew I wasn't reading nothing. And even the chat was saying I was wrong until I put the right question in there and it showed me he did say that.
And let me piggyback from that. Let me piggyback from that. Because what you brother, you've been speaking all day. I have just got in, and you interrupted me when I was speaking to the brother. Though you interrupted me.
Man, we're just trying to get the source from him, man. God damn. He reads.
Get the source.
We're asking for the source.
Get the source.
What source?
That comes out of Sheikh Anta Diop's book. The exact excerpt is from page 24.
No, what source did Diop's get that from, yo?
Okay, I got to get into that.
Okay. What I'm saying to you and Sonetta is, they may have not. They used the gunpowder to make the cart go faster, right? You use that as an example to why they didn't use. And Sonetta, you said they was doing war and all of these things, and they didn't use gunpowder. But just like what Rakufu said, there was only a small percentage of people knew how gunpowder, how to make it, but all Kemetic people saw the explosions in the ceremony, so they knew that gunpowder created explosions. All of us in the panel can agree with that, right? So if they knew that the gunpowder created explosions, then they knew that it could harm somebody. It could explode. So just because they didn't use it in war doesn't mean that they didn't know that it was dangerous or they didn't know that they could use it in war. So even though the fact that they didn't use it, let me finish before you interrupt me, Unc, and go into your long spiel.
I'm not going to go.
I haven't even talked for 30 seconds. I haven't even talked for more than 30 seconds, brother. So let me finish, and then you can go ahead and finish that.
I want to.
So, like I was saying, none of that is proof that they didn't know how it operated. Like I said, they knew it exploded. But to say that because they didn't use it in the war in the way that you feel that they should have used it doesn't mean that they didn't know how to use it. Like I said, we don't know why they didn't use it. But if you want to come up with hypotheses, we could say that the brother's spiritual aspect of how they looked at life was one of the reasons why they didn't use something as destructive.
Good comeback.
Right?
Good comeback.
That's a horrible comeback.
So everything that Unc is saying is not fact. It's just his theory because he believes that they should have used it. But there's no literature or no archaeological evidence to show that they didn't know how to use it or to use it in war. He's just making assumptions.
Come on.
The reason I said good comeback is because he showed where they used the explosives. So they did have to know that this could harm somebody. That's all I'm saying. Go ahead, you got the floor.
No, I'm not gonna do no long thing. Let's me and you dialogue. So we're not gonna go off on tangents. I'm gonna make a point, and you make your point. I'm gonna ask you a question, bro. If your thing is to restore my yacht, simply speaking, save your nation and people, would you use gunpowder to protect your people, or let your people get caught off to slavery and die and knock out the order of my yacht?
Now, let me put myself in the mind state of a Kemetic person in that space and time, and the spiritual practices that they may have been practicing, from what I know. And I may have not used that gunpowder, that knowing that it could destroy it can destroy people and possibly nature to protect my yacht. I may not do that. I may look at my yacht differently in the way that you're saying it right now, because I can't put myself in the space and time of someone in that time in Kemet. All I can go is by the archaeological and the literature that says how people thought at that time. And I agree with the brother that they were way more spiritual.
No, remember we said we weren't going
They
to go
use
on
religion.
tangents. Remember that?
They use religion. Yeah, but you asked me a question and I'm answering.
Tangents, remember?
I'm not going on a tangent, brother. I'm answering the question.
No, that's a long time, bro. We going back.
Okay. Well, let me land my plane here. Let me land my plane here. No, I don't think that they, because of the spiritual practices.
Them. You know
I agree
what?
with the other brother.
I said you.
Well, like I said, me, myself.
Go back in the
me, myself.
I said you with kids. You with
I answered it.
Kids and
I answered it.
Would you let your kids and babies get caught off in slavery and die and not use a weapon that you could potentially protect yourself with? That's the question, bro.
But that didn't really happen.
Since you're using a hypothetical, I have to put myself. Hold on. Since you're using a hypothetical, I have to put myself in the space and time of the people, because you can't use. Yeah. In 2025, yes.
Thank you for
in 2025. Yes.
Look,
in 2025, yes.
Thank you, sir.
But my culture would be different in Kemet back then than it would be in 2025.
No, your culture is always to protect your damn kids. What is wrong with y'all black men up here, man?
Hey, Sarnetta, earlier
you going by your opinion. You're not proving your point with no type of fact.
Aren't asked me for where did I get that? What was the source? It comes from.
You're not proving your point. I'm sorry, brother.
This is where it comes from. Diop is pointing to Cornelius de Paul's 18th century work, Recherches philosophiques sur les Egyptiens et les Chinois, which is a French Berlin G.J. Decker, 1773. That is the source behind the claim about Egyptian priests and the secret of gunpowder used in the mystery of Osiris.
Could you put that in the chat right there? It was too much French.
I'll send it to you later, huh?
But let me make one correction, because and this is why I say the misconception. For some reason the conscious community thinks that ancient Egypt got wiped out in one swoop by a bunch of white people that was angry and was tripping. It didn't happen like that. What happens is, over time, when you get waves of people attacking an area, and after the Greeks, who had a lot of black people over there, like you see me in Egypt in Alexander's compendium, the proposed location of it, it's right on the edge of the Nile. In case something goes wrong, he want to make sure he can get back to Greece really fast. So when cats make these claims about history and they don't really know the history, understand, once that the land stopped producing the way it was because it was ravaged by the Greeks, they began to move west and they began to move south. So all this, and then the babies were in slavery and didn't happen like that. It only happened to those who stayed. And even the Coptics are free to this day. They chose to convert, just like the Ethiopians chose to convert. In fact, the way Egypt loses its power is because they stopped doing business with those who didn't believe in Jesus. So if you didn't get with the new Jesus program, they stopped trading with you, which is why the Ethiopians end up converting in the end as well. So these historical narratives that are wrong, they need to be corrected in the community so you actually know why you fell. It was a spiritual power from another culture that decided to go against yours. And really, the uprising happens right in Egypt with people like Origen who had pagan parents. His parents were Shemsu, Necher. You got these people like that. You got Firmicus who used to do the rituals. You got Philo, the Egyptian, who began to translate Hebrew scripts for Hebrews who only spoke Greek. And so when you have these house Negroes in the house, it begins to fall, burn, and collapse, and you leave that house and create another. Now you have Ifa, Akan, etc., etc. Go ahead.
No, I'm back to you. So you don't know Egyptian history, dog? You playing?
Oh, I do. Are you trying to challenge what I said?
Yeah, yo, I'm saying,
Which part? Let's
I'm
get
saying,
to it.
who came in Egypt after Assyria, after the Assyrians, yo?
The Greeks and the Romans.
No, you know.
Yeah.
No,
The Persians? I
That's
think
how
the
that
Persians.
works.
no, it's the
In
Persians.
fact, here, I'll give you the
No,
history
bro,
since you
it's the
don't know it.
Persians, man. Stop it. It's the
The
Assyrians.
Persians are
It's
the
the
Assyrians.
No, man. It's the Assyrians,
Goodness.
then the Persians, then the Greeks, then the Romans. So after Pianki and
Watch
them,
this.
let me
Separate a
just
Persian and an
just
Assyrian
hold
for
on.
the people right now.
No,
Go
just
ahead.
hold on. No, just hold on for a minute, yo. You got Pianki and them, right? They bring back the glory days. They restored the Mayat, my nigga. All right? The Nubians did that because they were so entangled with the Egyptian thing. It's cultural entanglement that they knew the daggone thing. Easy work for them, right? Then they beat the Assyrians, right? No, the Assyrians came and got bogged down with malaria, right? They come back 2 years later. Yeah, I'm saying this is at about like 100 years of the Nubians ruling, and they beat the Nubians, right? And then the Persians beat the Assyrians, and then remember the Greeks beat the Persians. Remember that, right? And then the Romans beat the Greeks. We know this history, bro. So after them,
Romans unify with the Greeks.
No, man.
Persians and Assyrians get together with each other. This is why
Listen,
Darius the first son is Hannibal, and Xerxes is
Yo,
the one to push him to the point.
one mic, Asad. You gotta let them finish. Y'all gotta stop cutting each other.
I'm just trying to make a point, man, that the indigenous rules.
And then you can go, Asad.
After the daggone Nubians, you know what I'm saying, that indigenous control of the land was gone, bro. That's all I'm saying, man. That's all. No complication there, right?
Okay, I got you.
That's all I'm saying, bro.
All right, fam. Yo, I need to step out of here. I appreciate you guys for letting me come through. You know what I'm saying? I love it. And
Appreciate the conversation, bro.
You know, my whole point was, hey, let's get back to that African spirituality. That's my whole point. Yeah.
No, that's dope.
All right. I want everybody to know that we are live over there, and you know the next topic of the show, y'all know what it is. All right. If there is no God, there would be no atheism. Come on over, man, to the slaughterhouse, man. We got
you. Get them.
Come on over there. Everybody is welcome. All of y'all welcome over there. Come on in, man. I would like to see my teachers over there, and come on in there. The link is in the chat. It'll bring you right over. All right. The link is in the chat. We are live right now. Peace and blessings. We out. Peace. Come on over, Suntan, Asar, Rock, Kufu. We out.